Good morning to all of our attendees joining us today with the aim of kicking off this event. Let me remind you that today's activity will be recorded and will be in both English and Spanish. You will be able to listen to the simultaneous interpretation service using the globe icon that you can find at the bottom of your screen. On behalf of the INAI, we would like to welcome you to our commemorative event for the International Day of Universal Access to Information 2024 that poses the access to information and challenges for the public sector. We would like to thank you all, the representatives of the different offices, public officers, and our public in general. I'd like to introduce our distinguished participants for this opening event. Firstly, we have Commissioner Blanca Lilia Ibarra Cadena, Commissioner of INAI, Norma Julieta del Rio Venegas, Commissioner of INAI, Tawfiq Jelassi, Assistant Director General for Communication and Information at UNESCO, who will be joining us through a pre-recorded video message. I would also like to greet Dr. Milagros Ortiz Bosch, Director General of Ethics and Government Integrity of the Dominican Republic, who will be also joining us on behalf of the Transparency and Access to Information Network Chair. Also, Juan Pablo Guerrero, Senior Governance Specialist of the World Bank. Of course, I'm very happy to greet Toby Mendel, Executive Director of the Center for Law and Democracy. And of course, always our President Commissioner of INAI, Adriana Alcalá Méndez. So now I'd like to give the floor to Blanca Lilia Barra Cadena, Commissioner of INAI, who will be joining us with some welcoming words. Thank you and good morning to everyone. Today, in this very special day, I'm glad to have the possibility for technology to allow us to bring to you this very important event that closely relates to what we will be remembering soon, which is the International Day of Universal Access to Information. Dr. Jimena Sierra has mentioned already the people who are joining us today, and later in the next three panels, we will have other members who will be joining us from the three international networks for information access, the most important ones in the world, where INAI precedes two of them and presides over two of them, and we are very happy to have attendees from or representatives from both of them. My colleagues Adriana Alcalá and Julieta del Rio, thank you for your support. And I would like to briefly highlight what it means today, especially in the Mexican case, where we are just days away from a change of government, facing important challenges at a very important time where we have where the prevalence of INAI is being questioned. So today, more than ever, it is essential to remember that access to public information is not simply a right, but also a foundation on which to build a democratic society. Without access to information, citizens are left in the dark, unable to make informed decisions or hold their governments accountable. And therefore, it is imperative that we work together from all corners of the world and all our regions to continue to guarantee that this right is respected and strengthened without
Al
exceptions.
reflexionar sobre el tema propuesto
In
por la
reflecting
UNESCO para
on the
este
theme
año,
proposed by UNESCO for
integración
this
del
year,
acceso a la información y la
mainstreaming access to
participación en
information
el
and
sector
participation
público,
in the
no
public
podemos
sector,
dejar de
we
lado la
cannot overlook
importancia
the
de
importance of
transversalizar la cultura de la
mainstreaming the culture
publicidad
of
en todos los
openness
aspectos
in
del
all
quehacer
aspects of
gubernamental.
government
Por eso, el acceso a
activities.
la información no debe ser
Therefore,
visto como
access
un
to
fin en sí
information should
mismo,
not be
sino
seen
como
as
un
an end
medio
in
para
itself, but
empoderar a la
rather as
ciudadanía,
means to
para
empower
promover la rendición
citizens
de cuentas y,
and
en última
promote
instancia,
accountability
fortalecer,
and
desde luego, la
ultimately
confianza en las
strengthen, of course,
instituciones.
the trust in
También, el
institutions.
acceso a la información juega un papel
In
crucial en el
addition, it's important to
establecimiento de
highlight
estándares
that
de
access to information
participación
is a
política
powerful
para
instrument
la
that allows
ciudadanía.
citizens to
Una
exercise their
sociedad
rights fully and
informada es
effectively.
una sociedad
Informed
más
societies are
comprometida.
societies
En
that
ese
are more
sentido, el
committed.
tema que proponemos
And
hoy,
so, in this sense, the
integridad,
theme that we propose
transversalización
today,
y futuros retos
integrity,
del acceso a la
mainstreaming, and
información
future
en el sector
challenges of access
público,
to information
nos
in the public
invita
sector,
no solo a mirar
invites
hacia
us
adelante, sino
to
a
look
construir de
ahead
manera
and think about
decidida
how we can
sobre
continue
aquello
to build
donde activistas
decidedly
aquí
on
presentes,
what our
académicos,
activists,
integrantes de distintos
academics, and
sectores,
members of different
autoridades de
sectors,
distintos países,
authorities from
estamos
different
unidos
countries
en un
are
solo
working
fin y en un
together
solo objetivo.
towards a single
Pensar cómo
purpose.
podemos seguir avanzando
Find
en
the
la
best ways to
construcción
continue moving
de
forward
gobiernos
in
más
building governments
abiertos
that
y
are
más
more open,
transparentes.
more transparent.
Quiero reiterar la importancia de
I would like
trabajar
to
juntos
reiterate
a
the
través de las
importance of
redes
working together
internacionales
through
en las
international
cuales somos parte.
networks
Y quiero agradecer de manera muy especial
and
a
very
quienes
especially
en este día,
thank
más allá
those
del tránsito del horario, hoy
that
han
are joining
podido
us today
conectarse y van a compartir con
and will
nosotros
be
en esta
sharing with
mañana
us
lo que puede ser
this
en
morning
adelante en un
what
país, en un
could
mundo más
be
democrático,
in the
un
future in a
tema
more democratic
fundamental en la agenda
world,
ciudadana.
what
Y
is
finalmente, recordar que
an
fue
important
el
topic in the
17 de
citizen
noviembre del
agenda.
2015
And a reminder
cuando
that
la
it was in
UNESCO declaró
2015, on
el
September
28
17th,
de
that
septiembre
UNESCO
como el Día
declared September
Internacional del
28th as the
Acceso Universal a
International
la
Day of
Información. Y
Universal
es por
Access
eso
to
que hoy
Information.
el INAI lo
And
conmemora
so
de
today,
esta manera,
INAI
al
is
lado de ustedes,
celebrating
autoridades
it
de distintas
together with
partes
you,
del
with
mundo que
authorities
forman
from
parte
different parts
de
of the
las tres
world who
principales
are
redes
part of the three
internacionales
most
de
important
acceso a la información
international
para
networks
levantar la
of
voz y
information
defender
access,
juntas y
so we can
juntos
together
los
raise our
derechos
voices
que le
and stand
pertenecen
up
a la
for the
gente.
rights of
Muchas
people.
gracias.
Thank you
Buenos
all,
días.
and have a good day.
Muchas gracias, comisionada. Y a continuación,
Thank you,
proyectaremos el
Commissioner.
mensaje de
Next, we have
Tawfiq
the
Jelassi,
message of
subdirector
Tawfiq
general de
Jelassi,
Comunicación e Información de la UNESCO. Adelante al
from
equipo, por favor, con la
UNESCO.
transmisión.
He is the Assistant Director General for Communication and Information.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to address you as we celebrate the International Day of Universal Access to Information in Mexico City. The theme of this year, mainstreaming access to information and participation in the public sector, highlights that access to information benefits everyone and is shared responsibly. As Nelson Mandela once said, information is a basic human right and the fundamental foundation of democratic institutions. This right is enshrined in the international law, especially the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, safeguarding the right to seek, receive, and impart information. States are obliged to respect and ensure this right, which applies to all branches of government and public entities. Today, more than 140 countries have adopted right to information legislation, and this is a 10-fold increase from just 14 such laws in 1990. These laws are key to upholding human rights through transparency and accountability. For access to information to be meaningful, there must be an independent oversight. This ensures that governments comply with their obligations. The guidelines issued by the High Commissioner for Human Rights on the effective implementation of the right to participate in public affairs, recommend establishing independent mechanism to monitor and report on the implementation of these laws. UNESCO's monitoring of SDG Indicator 16.10.2 underscore the importance of such oversight. Data from over 140 countries shows that information commissions are the most effective in ensuring transparency. Protecting the independence of these bodies is essential. As we mark this important day, let's remember that access to information is not just a legal right, but a cornerstone of democracy, transparency, and accountability. By upholding this right, we empower citizens, strengthen institutions, and promote more just and equitable societies. Thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias a la UNESCO por el envío de este mensaje.
Thank you. I would
Mucho
like to
gusto,
thank
saludo
UNESCO
y doy
for
nuevamente la
this message, and
bienvenida
I
a la
would like to
comisionada Norma
once again
Julieta del Río
greet
Venegas,
Norma
comisionada
Julieta del
del
Río
INAI, a quien le
Venegas,
cedo el uso de
Commissioner
la voz.
of
Muchas
INAI,
gracias
and
nuevamente,
give you the
comisionada.
floor. Thank you, Commissioner.
Muchísimas gracias. Pues muy brevemente agradecer el
Thank
primer
you
término a la
so much.
comisionada
First of all, I would
Blanca
like to
Lilia
thank
Ibarra,
Commissioner
quien
Blanca
es
Lilia
la
Ibarra,
coordinadora y encargada de
our
esta
coordinator in charge
importante
of
reunión para
this
conmemorar
very
el Día
important
Internacional de Acceso a la
meeting in
Información. Gracias a la
celebrating the
comisionada Ibarra
International Day
y desde luego
of
al comisionado presidente y a todas
access
las
to information. Of course,
personalidades que
also our
hoy
Commissioner
están
President
en este
and
evento
every single
internacional
one of you
y
joining us today in this
pues justo
significant
para celebrar
international
lo que ya
event
comentaba la comisionada Ibarra,
to
pues
commemorate
este día
this
internacional
important
del Día del
international
Acceso a la
day
Información que justo llega en un
of
momento esta
information
celebración
access.
de
This
cara a la
celebration is
situación que atraviesa
precisely
México respecto a este
arriving
instituto.
during important
Esta
moments in Mexico
conmemoración
for
llega en
our
el momento
institute.
más
It
oportuno
comes
para alzar la
just in the
voz
right time
y
to
hacer
raise our
reclamo
voices,
y sobre todo el reclamo más allá del reclamo,
especially
la
not in a matter of
concientización de las nuevas
complaining, but
autoridades de lo que
mostly
representa el acceso a la
raising
información,
awareness in our
no
new
solo en México y
authorities
en el
in what
mundo.
access to
Yo
information represents, not
celebro
only in
que
Mexico, but around the world.
en este evento
I
escucharemos
applaud that
voces tan
during this
importantes
event,
como los
we
diputados de
are
cultura de
able
la
to
ONU,
listen
Juan
to
Pablo,
important voices
y
as
todos
we
y cada
heard,
uno de los que están
as
aquí.
we just
Y
heard
bueno, yo cierro
from the
diciéndoles que,
UN,
como
from
todos
Juan
sabemos,
Pablo, and from everyone
afortunadamente
joining us.
138
Around
países
138 countries
adoptarán las garantías
will
constitucionales,
adopt the
estatutarias y
constitutional
políticas para el acceso a la
guarantees
información
for
pública
access to
según de
information
acuerdo a la UNESCO.
based on
Entonces,
UNESCO's
pues
uh,
gracias por este
guidelines.
evento. Se
So
vendrán más de estos
thank you
eventos
for
donde
organizing this event. We'll hope we will
se
have
reafirme la
many more of these
importancia de este
events
día tan
where
importante.
the importance of
Estamos a
this
algunas
day
horas de
is
conmemorarlo y
reaffirmed. We
será
are
muy
just
interesante
hours
estar con
away from
ustedes.
the
Hoy más que nunca
celebration, and
defendamos
it will be great to
este
be joining
derecho
you
en este
all
país, pero también en el
today.
mundo.
Let's defend
Muchas
this
gracias,
right, not
comisionada
only in our
Ibarra,
country,
y
but
éxitos
all
para
around the
todos.
world. Thank you, Commissioner Ibarra, and I
Muchas
wish you all
gracias,
a successful
comisionada.
meeting.
Le cedo el uso de
Thank
la
you,
voz
Commissioner.
ahora a
Next,
la
I'd like to
doctora
give the
Milagros
floor to
Ortiz Bosch,
Dr.
quien
Milagros
está en
Ortiz
representación
Bosch,
de la presidencia de la Red de
representing the
Transparencia y Acceso
presidency
a la
of the
Información. Muchas gracias
Network of
nuevamente, doctora.
Ethics
Adelante.
on behalf of the
Muchísimas gracias,
Transparency and
doctora.
Access to Information
Agradezco
Network
mucho la
Chair.
comparecencia y el honor
Thank you
de
very
poder
much
darle
for the honor
punto
to
a Blanca
be
Lilia Ibarra,
joining Blanca Lilia
la
Ibarra,
comisionada excepcional de
an
magnífica
exceptional commissioner,
exposición esta mañana,
and
y
this
con
is a
todos ustedes,
magnificent position
Adriana
that he
Alcalá,
expresses today,
al señor
together with
Leonel David Yelahasi,
Adriana Alcala
y en breves palabras, a
and
todos los
all
que
of
estuvieron
the
presentes
guests
en
joining us
este
today.
próximo día 27 de
Those of us
¿aló? En este próximo
who will
¿ha
be,
pasado algo?
excuse me, I heard someone. No, that's
En
okay.
Parece que
esta
tiene
There was
abierto
a
conmemoración,
el
small
micrófono.
interruption,
Perdón que
but
haya
someone with
interrumpido
an
la
open
reunión.
mic.
en,
Le pedimos a
en
quien
esta conmemoración del
So
27
in
de
celebrating
septiembre, en el que por
the
la
27th
hermosa
of September,
convocatoria y decisión
a
de la
day
UNESCO,
that
estamos celebrando el
by
derecho universal a
invitation
la
of UNESCO,
comunicación.
we
Tengo que
celebrate
contarles,
the
aprovechando
right
esta manera
to
de
access
interferirme,
to
voy a
information.
decirle que para la
For the
República
Dominican
Dominicana
Republic,
esto tiene
this
una
presents a
característica
very
especial. Yo
specific
diría
characteristic.
que para no querer bajar nuestros tonos,
So when
debería
we
contarles
first
que al principio
took
cuando llegamos al gobierno
the
era muy
government,
clara
there was a very negative valuation of transparency in the Dominican Republic as a nation. The same can be said of the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank, International Transparency, the World Economic Forum, which were rating us in the last places in terms of transparency, integrity, and information access. And what happened was that we assumed and undertook the right to knowledge, the right to information, the right to transparency, and to understanding the situation of development of new technologies, and what was clearly a fundamental right for citizens to be heard, which are obligations and principles. And our republic has been improving in terms of all the indicators of access to information, transparency. We have been, our effort has have already resulted in outcomes that are visible. The fact that we have adopted the obligation to inform and the right to access to information has allowed us to obtain different ratings today at the international level, improved levels. In terms of INAI, now in the Chapultepec agreements and concerning information in terms of press and communication, this is very highly regarded. Things like this will happen always. We must always be aware of the fact that we are abiding by principles that push us forward, knowing always that these are just circumstances, and we must always have our eyes set beyond the future and democracy. Democracy is based on rights. We are representing these rights. Nowadays, democracy has suffered under many names. Democracy is about representation, but here I would like to underscore the value of UNESCO, transparency, the right to access information. And once again, democracy has a name and a last name, and it is transparency. Without it, there is no right to equality, no right to know, no right to participate and to become a subject of law and capable of writing public policy. And there's also tradition to consider. So let me tell you where I think transparency was born. I believe transparency was born many years ago in our Dominican Republic when Anton de Montesinos, along with the creator of right for our indigenous peoples, gave a lecture that was very appropriate to the Catholic faith at the time, who asked, what right do you have to enslave a free people? What right do we have to strip of their land men and women? What kind of right do they have? What this means is they all have the right to learn, the right to know. This is why we are working towards the goal of Honduras to work on the future, on planning the best way to work on what brings us together and not what pulls us apart. Knowing that countries in this world are looking for equality and participation and the right to be a part as a new world, as a way to build our own future. And the Dominican Republic
reglamentar
is therefore
se siente
grateful to
muy
be
agradecida
having
estar con ustedes en este
participation
día
today.
y
And we are
acompañarlos
with
a
you. We
sonreír
will be
ante cualquier
together,
tropiezo
joining you
y
in all
saber
your
que
successes. But we
tropezar
know that failing
dará
or
oportunidad
falling is
formidable
only a
de
reason to get
levantar el
up
pie
and
y seguir
continue
camino.
moving forward. Thank you
Muchísimas gracias. Un
once
abrazo.
again. Thank you, Dr. Bosch, for your kind words. And I'd like to now give the floor to Juan Pablo Guerrero, representing the World Bank. Thank you, Juan Pablo.
Muchas gracias por la invitación
Thank you
y
for
saludos
the
a los defensores
invitation,
del
and
derecho
I'd
de acceso
like
a
to,
información.
well,
Me
warmly
siento
greet those
distinguido
here who are
comisionado
defending the
fundador
right to
del
access to
INFAI,
information.
INAI,
I
en estas horas críticas para el derecho de
am
acceso a la información en
happy to
México.
join you in this critical
Desde la
time for
perspectiva del mundo de la
to defend the
cooperación
right to
y el
access to
desarrollo
information in Mexico.
internacional,
From the
desde el
perspective of
inicio del
cooperation and
nuevo
international
milenio,
development,
casi un
and
cuarto de
from the
siglo ya,
start of the
y cuando
new
se marcó
millennium,
la
almost
alternancia en el poder en
25
México,
years ago,
queda
when the
claro que para el
alternance in
desarrollo
power
se
happened in
requiere
Mexico,
de
it
pueblos,
became
de
clear that in order
ciudadanía,
for
de
development to
personas
happen, it was
fuertes,
necessary to have a
dotadas
strong
de derecho,
citizenship of
personas con
subjects of
autonomía
the
y
right,
capacidad de decisión.
with
En
the
esencia,
autonomy
estas
and
capacidades institucionales
capacity
son clave
to
para que los
decide.
gobiernos puedan reducir la pobreza
This is
e impulsar
this
una prosperidad
institutional strengthening it is
en un mundo
necessary for
más
people
habitable.
to
Uno, la
reduce their
capacidad del
poverty
sector
and
público
to
para
live in a
generar
more
bienes
habitable
y
world.
servicios públicos.
The public
Dos,
sector
una
needs to
capacidad
have the
para
capacity to
movilizar recursos
generate
y
public
ejercer
services
esos
and goods,
recursos,
the capacity to
movilizar ingresos y
mobilize
ejercer
said
esos recursos
resources
presupuestarios que paguen
and
los
budgets.
servicios públicos. Y tres,
And
muy importante, la capacidad
something
y
very
voluntad
important,
de
there
comprometerse y
has to be
aceptar
the
que sus habitantes
willingness to
se involucren,
commit
que
and to
pregunten, que
accept
cuestionen a través
that
de datos
inhabitants of
abiertos,
these
de
countries
derecho de
need to
acceso a la
be able to
información,
participate
mecanismos de
in
participación
uh,
y muy importante, rendición de
interrogate
cuentas.
and query
Proveer
them,
los servicios que la gente
as well
demanda,
as demand accountability
generar
from them.
los recursos
Providing the
necesarios y
services,
someterse al escrutinio público
generating the necessary
depende
resources, and
absolutamente de
being
un pueblo
subject to public
informado, de un
scrutiny
público
is, and
informado,
for this purpose, it's
de
necessary to
gente que
have
esté dispuesta a participar,
citizens
que
who
tenga
are
las oportunidades de hacerlo.
informed
En la médula
public
de un
that is
gobierno
willing to
bueno
participate.
hay ciudadanas,
At the core
ciudadanos
of a good government
informados,
are
informadas,
informed
veraz y honestas.
citizens, informed
El
in a
ejemplo de
truthful
México,
manner, of course.
como ya lo
The
decía
example of
Milagros,
Mexico,
siempre
as
sale a
Milagros
colación
has
en el
already
derecho
said,
a la información.
is always going to be spoken
Generalmente
of
México,
when it
nuestro
comes
país,
to the
tiene buenas
conversation
leyes,
on
pero no
information access.
siempre tiene una buena
Overall, Mexico
aplicación
has
de
good law,
esas leyes.
but not
Pero en el
always
caso
with
del
a
acceso
good
a la
application.
información, sí lo
In the
logramos.
case of
Una
information
buena
access,
legislación
we were
y
able
una
to
buena
achieve this.
forma de ejecución, de
A
implementación de
good
esas leyes.
good laws
Y
and a
eso se
good
debe al Instituto
implementation of
Galicia.
the law.
Más
And
de
this
20 años
is
después,
partly due to the
se puede
institute that
reconocer
is able to
claramente
guarantee this.
que tenemos retos
For
pendientes. El uso
20
del derecho de acceso a la
years, we
información ha crecido
have
mucho en
faced
México y los ha
challenges that are
proporcionado
still
millones de
there to
usuarios
solve.
digitales. Pero no podemos
Millions of
todavía decir que el
users
derecho de acceso a la
access
información sea
our
un derecho
the
que todas
INAI,
las
but access
mexicanas,
to
todos los
information
mexicanos
is
usamos.
not yet one that
Es
all
un
Mexicans
reto que
are
tenemos en popularizar
making use of.
ampliamente ese
We
derecho,
need to make this right
buscando
known
que
more
cada persona que
broadly
tenga un problema,
so that anyone
una
who
dificultad
may
frente
be
a la
faced with a
autoridad,
problem
recurra
in the
en
face of an
automático
authority
y
can
directamente
automatically,
ante el
directly
instituto.
decide
La
to
segunda cuestión
go
tiene que ver
straight
con
to
la
the
rendición de
institute.
cuentas del
Secondly, we
propio
have
INAI.
accountability, the
Ahí el
accountability
diseño
of INAI.
institucional también tiene un fuerte
Institutional
potencial
design
de
also has a
mejora.
very
Esto
strong
siempre es un trabajo en
potential for
curso,
improvement.
un
This is
trabajo en
always work in
proceso
progress,
de
always
mejora.
work in
Pero
progress,
los que
always
creemos en la
with
transparencia
ways to
y el
improve.
derecho
But
de
for
acceso a
those
la
of us who believe
información,
in transparency
seguiremos
and
empujando
access
esta
to
causa
information
por
rights, we'll
siempre.
continue to push
Nos
for
levantaremos
this cause
una y
always.
otra
We will
vez
continue to get up
y
once and again.
tenemos la solución que ha
And
funcionado antes
we have a
cuando
solution
parece
that
que
has
todo
worked in the
está
past
destruido.
when everything seems lost.
Volver a empezar de nuevo.
Start all over.
Estamos listos.
And we are ready
Gracias
for
por su
that.
atención
Thank you very
y por
much
la
for your
distinción
attention
que me han hecho.
and for the invitation.
Muchísimas gracias, Juan Pablo.
Thank you very
Nuevamente
much, Juan
aprovecho para
Pablo.
saludarte con mucho
And
gusto.
I take this
Y
time
doy
to greet you
paso
again with
ahora a
great
Toby
pleasure.
Mendel.
Now,
Él es
I
director
give
ejecutivo
the
del
floor to
Centro
Toby
para el
Mendel. He's
Derecho y la
Executive Director
Democracia.
for the Center
Solo
for
haciendo
Law
la
and
precisión
Democracy.
de que Toby hablará
With
en inglés,
noting
por lo que
that
sugiero
Toby will
mantener
speak in English,
listos
that is
los
why I
botones de
suggest
interpretación para que ellos
that you
lo
activate
requieran.
the
Thank you so
interpretation
much, Toby,
service
for
if you
being
require
here.
it.
You have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be with you on this occasion. And of course, happy Idue to everyone coming to us in a couple of days. I'd like to touch briefly on two themes, and the first is the one that Taufik really concentrated on: the absolute centrality of effective, independent oversight bodies to effective delivery of the right to information. And as someone who works internationally on this right, and I don't know how many countries I have worked in, but quite a few, I can say that it's really clear to me how important these are to this right, and there are two reasons for this. First, of course, these bodies give access to requesters and ordinary people, requesters who can't go to court for these things, access to an effective complaint system. And that is the most obvious and the most prominent feature of these bodies, and the one that is universal to all of them around the world. But secondly, they play a very central role where they are empowered to do that in providing expertise and leadership on this issue. And I won't go into the details of that, but that covers such things as providing training, providing advice, both to public bodies and to requesters, putting in place systems to facilitate requests and responses to requests, raising public awareness, engaging in law reform, among many other possibilities there. And that issue of providing leadership on this issue leads me to the second point that I want to make, and that is about the incredible leadership role that INAI has played. I won't talk about in Mexico, although obviously they have done that within Mexico. I will talk about the international role that INAI has played. And as someone who really works on this issue internationally, I can't express how much I have personally appreciated that and the importance of that. And I think that, as INAI faces these very serious challenges that are before it today, we really need to keep this point in mind. And I can say, I think everyone who has been working on RTI for a long time will remember the incredible event in Cancun back in, I don't know, it was 2004 or 2005, spearheaded by INAI, which really brought the whole world together for the first time in a really big way on the right to information. But this role is much, much greater than that. And of course, it's very easy to point to, for example, INAI's leadership in setting up and then running the International Conference of Information Commissioners. We met in Tirana in June, and I mean the role that INAI has played. That's the body that brings together the oversight bodies around the world. The role of INAI in its regional leadership with the network in Latin America and inspiring the creation of these bodies in countries in Latin America. But I would also like to point to a very personal experience that I had a few years ago working with INAI. I used to do a lot of work in Afghanistan on the right to information. That was, of course, before the Taliban took over the country and basically destroyed democratic institutions in that country. And we were successful in setting up a very independent oversight body in Afghanistan. But that body had virtually no capacity, none of the systems and training and things that were needed to lead on that issue in the country. I immediately reached out to INAI for support, and they immediately responded in a positive way and offered that support. I connected them with the people at the Afghan oversight body, and INAI supported them and helped them as they set themselves up and developed as an institution. Of course, today that institution no longer exists because, as I mentioned, Afghanistan has been taken over by the Taliban. But I think it really shines a spotlight into some of the the real leadership. It's one thing to kind of lead at these big international institutions, but it's another thing to reach out to a country like Afghanistan and be there when they need it. And INAI has done that. So, I mean, I really would like to end by thanking INAI for the leadership, not only in big international fora, but also, in struggling countries that you have shown. I fervently hope that you are able to continue to do that as we go forward. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Toby, for your words, and thank you so much once again for being here with us in this important commemoration for all the organisms that are in charge of the access to information. Thank you once again, Toby.
Now, I give the floor to the Commissioner of INAI, Adrián Alcalá Méndez. Thank you very much, Jimena. Good morning, everyone in Mexico. Good evening in other parts of the world. I want to greet everyone who are now with us in this virtual forum for the celebration of the International Day for Universal Access to Information. I also greet with great pleasure Taguifis Gelasi, Assistant Director General for Communication and Information of UNESCO, who sent us this video that we all saw. Also, Milagros Ortiz, General Director of Ethics and Government Integrity of the Dominican Republic, on behalf of the Presidency of the Transparency and Access to Information. Also, Juan Pablo Guerrero, Senior Governance Specialist and co-founder of the INAI, and Senior Governance Specialist of World Bank, and Toby Mendel, Executive Director of the Center for Law and Democracy. I also greet the Banca Lilia Ibarra Cadena, Commissioner of the INAI and organizer of this important event, commemorating one more year and bringing visibility to the importance and transcendence of access to public information. And of course, Norma Julieta Rio Venegas. I also greet all the panelists of the warrantor bodies of the countries, and also the members of ITC and RTA, and the general audience. First of all, I want to express that I feel honored to celebrate one more year in defending access to information, which is an important right, and actually one of the most distinctive rights for the latest generations. Since long ago, this has been defended by great thinkers. There are many milestones that recognize the right to this fundamental right in the country. The constitutional reform to Article 6 in 1977, and the Burgoa and Aguas Blancas cases of 1983, and the posting of the first access to information law that then led to the creation of the IFAI, which was a predecessor to our current institution. Therefore, 20 years ago, UNESCO, it was 9 years ago that UNESCO proclaimed September 28th as a celebration of this fundamental human right, attending the principles of legislative freedom and also in agreement with international agreements. Today, we not only commemorate this day, but we also reflect on the importance and transcendence of the right to know, which is materialized in the exercise of other fundamental rights and is now a pillar for the development of democracies. In times of change, human rights must prevail with the purpose of creating certainty and security and mitigate uncertainty among the society. In the INAI, I have had the great opportunity and privilege and honor to see the hard work by men and women committed to warranty the access to information and the protection of personal data. Servicing the citizenry, we always look in this institution to provide an immediate response to basic needs and also the resolution of issues that have reached international levels. And this has also open new doors to other organizations around the world. Therefore, now I celebrate the success of all Mexicans in strengthening these basic human rights to warranty the basic needs of all society. I also want to call on everyone who hasn't exercised this right to become involved in a more assertive way in favor of democracy and accountability, and to reduce all barriers that still limit the exercise of this right. We must strengthen our institutional efforts to disseminate this information through educational programs and campaigns, but also through training for communities, and leverage technologies that allow us to expand the exercise of this important right in the benefit for the national development that is more equitable and democratic. As a regulator body, we have the obligation to materialize access to right to information in all levels of the government, because our common objective is clear. It's access to information as a human right, and it must be constituted as a guiding principle for decision-making, transparency, and accountability. And if we are aware of the challenges we face currently, such as, well, since like commissioners have mentioned, so our current situation, we have the task to continue walking ahead. Last August 23rd, the legislative chamber adopted a proposal that threatens to reform many institutions, including INAI. The expulsion of our charter and a warrantor body would have devastating consequences for the system of transparency and of data protection, affecting not only warrantor bodies that are part of the transparency network and the units of transparency, but also the Mexican society, who would lose a key mechanism to exercise their right to access to information and protection of personal data. This reform would represent, if approved, a step back in democracy and an attack against human rights. From the INAI, we will continue insisting on the importance of not eliminating, but rather strengthening this institution and all our institutions. Impartial and autonomous organizations are essential for the correct functioning of any democracy. The INAI, well, this would definitely threaten the impartiality and threaten the access to transparency and access to information. The history of Mexico has taught us that dialogue and collaboration between different sectors are great tools. Therefore, now I call everyone respectfully but firmly, for all legislators of the new government and society at large, to reflect together on the challenges and the successes we have achieved so far. We must also be aware that there is a long way ahead of us, like Juan Pablo Guerrero said. We need to sit down and start dialogues and build together a new horizon for transparency and right to information. I am sure that this call will be heard. That's why I call again on all legislators and tell them that we are open to dialogue to build new proposals to strengthen the exercise of these rights we protect. We are all committed in working with all political forces to ensure that any change preserves access to information, transparency, and privacy and accountability in an autonomous new model. We understand that a legislative analysis hasn't concluded. Therefore, from my opinion, this represents a great opportunity to build together a path that allows to improve the efficiency of INAI without weakening access to human rights. We have endless opportunities, but our commitment is permanent. So we invite you to be agents of action to protect all human rights in entire freedom. And I want to share this quote from Martin Luther King. Commit yourself with the noble fight for human rights. You will make a better man of yourself. You will also contribute to your country and for the world. I hope this is a very productive day for everyone. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Commissioner and Chair Adrián Alcalá. And now I ask panelists to please turn on your cameras for just a second so we can take a picture for this official opening ceremony.
Muchísimas gracias nuevamente a todas y todos.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Y a continuación veo que también
Now,
tenemos
I
conectados a
see
nuestros panelistas
that we
de la
have the
siguiente sesión.
panelists
Sean
for our
nuevamente
next
muy
session.
bienvenidas y
Again,
bienvenidos
welcome
todos.
everyone.
Muchas gracias a quienes están nuevamente en esta transmisión.
Thank you for
Daremos
joining
así
us.
entonces inicio al
So
primer panel del
we can
evento
now
que
start the first
titulamos
panel of this
Integridad
event
y acceso a la
called
información
Integrity
como
and Access to
catalizadores de procesos
Information
democráticos y
as
que está conformado por
catalysts
los
for
miembros de la Red
democratic
para la Integridad, red que
processes.
preside este instituto. Por lo anterior, cedo con mucho gusto
Now
la
I give the
palabra a
floor
Laura
with great
Perla
pleasure to
González
Laura
Dávila,
Perla
quien moderará
González
esta sesión.
Davila, who will
Laura
moderate
Perla es la
this
secretaria ejecutiva de este
session.
instituto.
She is Executive
Asimismo,
Secretary of this
aprovecho para
institution.
informar
And I
que el
also want to inform you
representante
that
del Buró
representative
Anticorrupción de
of the
Georgia
Bureau
hablará
of
en el idioma
Anti-Corruption of
local
Georgia
georgiano.
will
Por
speak
lo
in
tanto, tenemos
their
un
local
intérprete que
Georgia
hablará el idioma
language. Do we
georgiano
have
al inglés
a
y posteriormente lo
Georgian
estarán
interpreter?
escuchando en español. En ese sentido, le cedo la palabra con mucho
So
gusto
now I
a
give
la
the floor
secretaria ejecutiva del INAI,
to the
a quien
Executive
agradezco
Secretary of
nuevamente.
INAI.
Adelante, secretaria.
You have the floor.
Good morning, distinguished speakers, esteemed guests, and all who have joined this video call and followed this YouTube live session. My name is Laura Perla González. I am the Executive Secretary of the National Institute for Transparency, Access to Information, and Personal Data Protection, INAI. INAI is an autonomous, independent, and public Mexican institution. We regulate entities and monitor a constitutional mandate. All individuals and entities that receive public resources must be accountable to the public in an open manner. Mexico recognized the human right to access information through a general law. This sets equal conditions without any discrimination. So, it is my honor to welcome you to this panel discussion on integrity, access to information, and democratic proceedings. As we all know, democracy thrives on transparency, informed citizens, and accountability. Integrity and access to information are central to fostering trust in democratic institutions. In a world where misinformation is rampant and institutions are often analyzed, it is imperative that we uphold these values in our political, social, and media system. Today, we are privileged to have 4 esteemed speakers with us. They bring depth expertise and unique perspectives on this critical subject. To the speakers, as I welcome you, if you don't have any objection, I will refer to you by your first names. This panel will last 50 minutes. First, I will introduce each of you, and then you will have 5 minutes to answer any of the following questions. Option 1, what strategies is your institution implementing to strengthen integrity, transparency, and access to information? Option 2, how have transparency and accountability helped building trust and effective governance in your country? Lastly, share the best practices in your institution has implemented. Let me introduce our participants. Viktor Pavluchik is the director of the National Agency for the Prevention of Corruption of Ukraine. He has also worked in the security service of Ukraine in operational and management positions. Thank you very much for being here today. We are also joined by Dr. Anduena Jebori, Director of the Office of the High Inspectorate for the Declaration and Audit of Assets and Conflicts of Interest of Albania. Parallel to academic, Dr. Anduena worked as a consultant for different international organizations. Thank you for your attendance. We are also fortunate to have Razden Kupreshvili, Director of the Anti-Corruption Bureau of Georgia. He worked as a Director of Legal Assistance and previously headed the International Black Sea Chamber of Arbitration. He has also served as Chairman of the Review Commission of the Georgian Bar Association. We are honored by your presence today. Last but not least, I'm pleased to welcome you all to Mr. Florin Moise, President of the National Integrity Agency of Romania. He holds a degree in economics from the University of Economic Studies in Bucharest. He began his professional career within the Romanian National Integrity Agency in 2008 as advisor to the president. In July 2021, Mr. Florin was appointed president of the National Integrity Agency for a term of 4 years. Thank you all for your important participation in this first panel. I ask that the well-respected time allotted to each speaker, as this will ensure that everyone has an opportunity to contribute meaningfully to our discussion. Remember, 5 minutes. I look forward to a rich discussion. Victor, you have the floor to answer one of these questions.
Buenos dias, muchas gracias. Hello, colleagues. It's a great honor to be here and to present best practices of Ukraine's and NACP examples of our great work. First of all, I want to say about anti-corruption measures that are mentioned. Sorry, I have a small presentation for you, and if it's possible to give me ability to be able to share screen, or maybe to I can say about presentation you also have, for example. I'll try to begin, and then when it's possible, I'll say when it's ready. First of all, if we are talking about corruption, we always talk about fighting corruption. It's most of all, it means punishment for corruption crimes. And for most citizens, the best way to fight corruption is to put as many corrupt officials behind bars as possible. But if we are talking about complicated measures, we need to talk not just fighting corruption, but also preventing corruption. What, first of all, National Agency on Corruption Prevention is charged for. And I'll try to share the most information, if it's possible to share my slides. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to say that Ukraine has achieved great results in making our life easier in preventing corruption. NACP has developed and coordinates the implementation of most complicated documents, its anti-corruption strategy and state anti-corruption program. And we have such a great IT tool, international system of monitoring of implementation of the state anti-corruption policy. And first of all, this document is really complicated and has more than 1,000 measures to be done in all spheres of life until the end of year 2025. And it's established for 3 years. And now we have already 30% of measures that already done. And it's a great example of IT tool where you can find all the information leading through the QR code. You can find it also in English, and it's divided onto 2 parts, public and hidden. Hidden is for more than 100 state agencies that are involved in the process of implementation of anti-corruption program, and the public part is for for civil society to have ability to control these measures and to control agencies that are involved in this development. I can share some examples, but maybe I focus on those that are connected with open data and ability of civil society to influence the fight and preventing corruption in Ukraine. State anti-corruption program involves measures to establish and to update 63 IT tools in Ukraine that will help us to make our life corruption-free. And here you can see examples, for example, in different spheres of the level of implementation and amount of measures that are already done. To properly cover the steps, Ukraine has also a nationwide communication strategy to explain to the public that anti-corruption is not only about criminal cases against bribe hackers, but also about the development of open data, digitalization, economic deregulation, reduction of discretionary powers in legislation, etc. Here you can see the information, and next slide, I'll also move forward because of the lack of time. You can see the spheres of light that we are communicating in our communication strategy on anti-corruption. You also can move to using this QR code and find the exact examples of, for example, information published on big boards and movies on TV that will help civil society to be involved in preventing corruption. The active control of the authorities by civil society in Ukraine, including numerous investigations of journalists, which often lead to criminal cases being opened by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, wouldn't have been possible without open data. And here you can see the information of level of implementation of open data in Ukraine, and the level is 96%. And we can say that as a result, in year 2020, Ukraine was included in the European Open Data Maturing Ranking for the first time. And in year 2023, it was ranked third among 35 European countries.
Excuse me, Mr. Victor, your slides are not going forward, at least not at the screen.
Yeah, it's changing. Yeah, no.
Yes, it's just in the first slide what we are looking at the screen right now.
Sorry, I'll try to once more.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe it's better. You can see here, yeah?
Yes, we can see it now. Thank you so much.
I'll move just for a few seconds just to understand what I already talked about. It's, for example, the result dashboards of implementation of state corruption programs that I already mentioned. And it was slides about communication strategy on anti-corruption. And here you can find the issues I already mentioned. And one of them, for example, corruption whistleblowing, because we are really proud about making real the direction of directive of European Commission. And now we are trying to pay, we are ready to pay next week first reward for whistleblower for claiming about corruption, and it's about $40,000 as I remember. Here I talked about the level of ranking of open data in Ukraine, and in year 2023 we were ranked third among all 35 European countries that are involved in this rating. Also, we can be proud of good practices of such open data and ability us to use IT tools. It's that 10 years ago, only 5% of Ukrainians positively assess the quality of public services in Ukraine. And it's really changed in the year 2020 with establishment of such a great example of Ukrainian IT tool. It's DIA, where you can find all the information in your smartphone and use it in your life. It's also driving license. It's your passport. It's your passport for trips abroad. It's documents on your kids, and it's also documents about your education. And it's a great example that this portal DIA has provides ability to have administrative services, more than 100 administrative services. And a great example, for example, using DIA, you can just sell your car or buy a car, and to take car plates just using post service without visiting any state agency and facing corruption in these agencies. And if there is no person, if there is no discretion, there is no corruption. I think it's a great example of openness and transparency of Ukraine. Also, we have such great tools like Prozoro for making sales in state agencies. It's Dream, where you can find information about all renovation projects in Ukraine, because we are facing war and we need to renovate our country. And it's also a great example without using people. And I think these IT tools, first of all, it was the reason why Ukraine has received a great progress in corruption perception index in the last 10 years. And just last year, we moved on 3 points, the best result among all countries in the world in corruption perceptions index. And I think it was possible, first of all, using this open data. For example, NACP, National Agency on Corruption Prevention, we are producing a great amount of information, like information from our registry of the asset declarations, and annually more than 700,000 people are submitting their asset declarations, where you can find all the information about assets, income, and expenditures of public officials in Ukraine. Thank you so much. Sorry for some problems with my presentation. I'm ready to answer all and any questions you have. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Victor. You provided insightful information about the Ukraine's fight against corruption. The implementation process has some relevant aspects like the media strategies. Dr. Anduena, it's your turn.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for organizing this event. I'll try to squeeze my presentation as much as possible within the 5 minutes. So the High Inspectorate for the Declaration and Audit of Assets and Conflict of Interest is an institution created since 2003, and it was firstly connected only with the declaration and audit of assets, but then the competences through the years have been changed. At present, the High Inspectorate administers the declaration of assets and financial liabilities and audit of the declaration and private interest, manages and improves mechanisms for preventing and avoiding conflict of interests, and monitors and advises on mechanisms aimed at managing the status of the whistleblowing. The independence of the High Inspectorate through the years has been increased, which has had a positive effect in the transparency of the activity of the institution, on the accountability and increasement of public trust in our institution. So the current legal framework into power shields the High Inspectorate from improper influence at hands of political branches of the government, and at the core of such quests stay a fixed term of the office of the General Inspector, modalities for its elections, guaranteed tenure in the office, the recognition of the managerial autonomy, as well as sufficient budget for the institution. In the governance of our institution, transparency is a core principle. So the High Inspectorate publishes annual reports related to its activity and its functional decision making. These reports are submitted to the Parliament and are made public in the official website of the Parliament and in the official website of our institution, of the High Inspectorate. This annual report, which can be assessed by everybody, contain extended information and statistical data about the implementation of the laws on declaration of assets, conflict of interest, and whistleblowing, as well as clear data on human and financial resources of the institution, and other information such as collaboration with national or international partners. Additionally, the High Inspectorate, in the framework of the law on the right to information, proactively publishes information about its organizational structure, appropriate legal framework, activity, budget, procurement, implementation of contracts, which are accessible to the public in the official website of the High Inspectorate. And finally, the High Inspectorate treats every request for information based on the law on the right to information. I'd like to mention some good examples of our activity related to the transparency. For example, the introduction of the electronic system of the Declaration of Private Interest in 2022 was a tool which increased transparency and also public trust in our institution. The High Inspectorate for the Declaration and Audit of Assets and Conflict of Interest has become a well-established institution with this introduction of the online system for the assets, and close to 100% of around 4,000 persons concerned entered their declarations in the online system. To mention a good practice related to transparency and access to information, I would like to point out the publication of the declarations of private interest. The three main laws which govern the activity of the High Inspectorate provide for disposition related to transparency, and as such, the law on the declaration of assets provides for the publication of the declaration of assets and private interest in accordance with the law on the right to information and the law on protection of personal data. So public access to the declarations of private interest is made now possible through the electronic system and is regulated by a special decision of the Council of Ministers. Another element which I would like to mention that increases again our transparency is collaboration with the civil society. And I would like to mention a special example. Hitachi last year signed a cooperation agreement with the Albanian Committee of Helsinki, and in the framework, this agreement was signed in the framework of the implementation of the initiative Civil Society Against Corruption, from a local challenge to a European response. And in the framework of this cooperation, there are organized different trainings, and there is also published different information about the law and the role of whistleblowing. So this is in short the experience of Hitachi related to transparency and access to information. Thank you for your attention.
Anduena, we appreciate the perspective you provided on the legal aspects available on the websites and the access tools created for audits. Razden, please continue with your answer.
Greetings, colleagues. I have the honor to present the Georgia Anti-Corruption Bureau. In Georgia, Anti-Corruption Bureau was established just a year ago. We are very happy to be part of this significant network. I would like to speak about transparency. Anti-Corruption Bureau, one of the mandates is the property status, asset status, transparency and monitoring of officials, public officials. I hope that you can hear the interpretation, right? The English interpretation. So again, let me greet and welcome you. I'm not sure if you have been able to hear throughout. I have the honor to introduce and represent the Anti-Corruption Bureau of Georgia, which was established in Georgia just a year ago. We are very happy to be part of this highly significant network. I would like to speak about the transparency matters today. One of the focus areas of our office. Bureau is a property status and financial monitoring of the officials, and to note that all officials in Georgia, judges, police officers, parliamentaries, prime minister, president, all of those officials are filling out the property assets declarations, and those assets declarations are publicly available and accessible to our citizens. Furthermore, we implemented the reform, legislative reform several months ago, which mandates us to have the declarations monitored, declarations of public officials. Of course, this represents a high standard. We annually examine the declarations submitted about their assets of the officials, as well as the financial standing related information of their family members. And subsequently, we ensure the informing the public about the outcomes and about the findings and the conclusions of monitoring. Moreover, one of the mandates of our Bureau is the integrity and ethics and accountability. And this is a very significant direction for the development of our institutions, and we are implementing reforms. We have the national anti-corruption strategy in place, which annually sets the reforms for various institutions, and the Anti-Corruption Bureau is coordinating those reforms. It should also be noted that the transparency and information access-wise, Georgia is one of the leaders region-wide. Although for us, it's important to hear and consider the recommendations from international organizations such as the Greco, CAC, and the reforms that are identified in these entities and organizations. They are implemented in Georgia, which further enhances the transparency standards in our country. This is briefly what I wanted to say about the Georgia ACB, and of course, I will be happy to answer any questions and wish you success and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, expertise, and perspective. You share the standards for public offers in your country, a great example. I now give the floor to Florin.
Hello, and good evening from Romania, from Bucharest. Here we have 26 degrees in this beautiful autumn. I hope you are hear me and everything is okay. You can confirm? Yeah, okay. Best regards to my friends, best regards to my friend Mrs. Ibarra, which is a very good friend of mine, and best regards to everyone. And I will try to be extremely brief and to explain more from our strategy. I will try to focus on the first point. And it will be my pleasure to speak today this crucial role of strategy, which the role that strategy plays in strengthening integrity, transparency, and access of information. So a good strategy is not only a list of desired goals, but it's also a practical method for solving actual problems. The effectiveness of any strategy lies in its ability to address the existing issue through target and actionable steps. So our approach has been built upon this understanding, ensuring that our strategies are not just ambitious, but also realistic and designed to produce concrete results. So we have structured our strategy on two essential levels. The first level is that of combating and prevention as a core business. And the second level is of communication and cooperation as a supportive framework to the core business. Now, let me explain how we have implemented this. Our first focus was on combating and preventing conflict of interest, incompatibilities, and unjustified wealth, as well as embracing transparency in public administration. To achieve this, we have implemented several key systems. The first, and I will talk a little bit about the IT systems. The first implemented system is the Assets and Interest Disclosure Portal. While public institutions in Romania had the obligation to publish the declaration for public official on their website, we found out that there wasn't a centralized point for declaration. So to address this, we created the declaration portal, a tool available on our website to ensure that all declarations are transparent and easily accessible to any interested person. Since 2009, because we were established in 2007 as a condition to access European Union. So since 2009, when we start this portal, we have succeeded to gather over 12 million disclosure, assets and interest disclosure, which are made public for everyone, even from you. You can access from Mexico every assets and interest disclosure for any public servant from Romania. So it will not be a problem. The second system we have implemented, it's entitled Prevent. In the earlier times, while conflict of interest were identified, the sanctions were not dissuasive and financial prejudice remain often unrecovered. To address this, we have shifted our focus from ex post to ex ante measures with the introduction of Prevent system in 2017. It is designed to scrutinize hundreds of thousands of public contracts and to detect potential conflict of interest in public procurement procedures. This tool discovered approximately 200 cases of potential conflict of interest involving familial links between authorities and bidders. These cases, so just be a little bit very attentive. These cases had the amount of 1.9 billion euro. So we have prevented conflict of interest not to be signed in a total of amount of 1.9 billion euros. And the fourth implemented system was the EDI platform. Before the digital era, the declaration were filled in and submitted manually, making them difficult to manage. Also, some declarations were incorrectly filled or incomplete. So we have created this application in 2021, which marked a step forward, allowing for electronic submission of assets and interest disclosure, making electronical. The fourth system we have implemented, it's verification EDI platform. While the introducing for electronic declaration represented a step forward, there was still the need for a tool to make them useful and more useful. The verification platform, which was launched this year, addressed this need by allowing for automatic verification of declaration based on risk factors, enhancing our ability to detect and address potential integrity issues. Finally, the fifth implemented system is integrity aid. The lack of clarity in the integrity laws is another challenge we encountered. Our legal advisors receive thousands of requests each year for public officials on the interpretation of integrity laws. To address this, we currently developing the Integrity Aid platform, a machine learning-based tool designed to provide real-time guidance and raise awareness on integrity laws. While strengthening our core business has been crucial, it was equally important to create a supportive environment through effective communication and cooperation. Among the challenges we have faced in this area, the low trust level in the integrity system in the years following the revolution commanded our immediate attention. We need to overcome this challenge to meet the request for NATO and European Union accession. Our communication strategy has been instrumental in addressing these challenges. To exemplify, any finalized cases and widely publicized and disseminate through press release. This has made a significant contribution in gaining public support and education the public on integrity issue with a deterrent effect. Also, a regular and clear communication of legal interpretation has helped to harmonize practices. For instance, before hiring employees, now commonly consult ANI for guidance reflecting the impact on our results, our efforts. On the same time, we have focused on interinstitutional cooperation. This focus is reflected, among others, in our active participation in the implementation of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, where we work in mixed evaluation team across all areas, with Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Health, Prosecutor Office, and other bodies. Last but not least, our strategy also involves active collaboration with business stakeholders, international organizations, and civil society. This is vital in ensuring that our integrity system is robust and adaptable to the dynamic landscape. In closing, I want to emphasize that our strategy are not just theoretical constructs, but are practical, target solution to concrete problems. By focusing on both corruption and prevention as our core business, and by building a solid framework of communication and cooperation, we are making significant progress in strengthening integrity and transparency. As we look ahead, we will continue to refine and implement strategies to align with our goals and also address the challenge that arise in our dynamic environment. So thank you very much, and thank you for your attention.
Many thanks for your words. The context and step followed to solve a public matter are essential, and the key systems that you have implemented are impressive. I'm sorry we don't have time for questions, so we are at the end of this panel. The conversation remains focused and respectful, allowing space for thoughtful exchanges. Thanks to obtain a deeper understanding of how integrity and access to information can bolster democracy. Thank you for your time and have a nice day.
to begin.
Okay.
Muy bienvenidas y bienvenidos a los que se suman a este segundo
Welcome
panel. Le
everyone
cedo el
joining
uso
the
de la
second
voz a la
channel. I
comisionada
give the
Blanca
floor
Lilia
to
Ibarra, quien
Commissioner
será
Blanca Lilia
nuestra
Ibarra, who
moderadora el
will
día de hoy. Y
moderate
también les
today's
invito a
panel.
seguir la
And I also
transmisión a través
ask you
de la
to,
página
you
YouTube
can
del INAI.
follow the
Muchas gracias
transmission in
nuevamente,
our YouTube
comisionada.
channel.
Adelante.
You have the floor, Commissioner.
Muchas gracias
Thank you
nuevamente.
very much
Muy
again,
buenos días a
everyone. Good
todas y a
morning,
todos. Sean
good evening, good
muy
afternoon, everyone.
bienvenidas y bienvenidos a
Welcome
este
everyone
segundo
to this
panel.
second
Me
panel
complace mucho
that I'm pleased
ser la
to
moderadora
moderate
y en nombre de quienes integran el pleno
on
del
behalf of the
Instituto
plenary
Nacional de
of the
Transparencia, Acceso a
INAI
la
in
Información y
Mexico.
Protección de Datos Personales de México. Es un honor
It is an
con
honor
ustedes
to
poder
be with you
conmemorar el Día
to commemorate
Internacional de Acceso
International
Universal
Day
a la
for Universal
Información.
Access to
Ahora el
Information.
panel que nos convoca,
Today's panel
denominado
is
El
entitled
impacto
The
de la
Impact of Information
transversalización de la información en el
Mainstreaming
sector
in the Public
público,
Sector,
nos ofrece una oportunidad
offers
para
an
explorar
opportunity
cómo
to
este derecho
explore how
fundamental
this fundamental right
permea las políticas
permeates public
públicas
policies and
y
strengthens
fortalece
our
nuestras
institutions.
instituciones. El acceso a la información,
Access to
ustedes lo
information,
saben,
as you
es
all know,
esencial
is
en cualquier
essential in
sociedad
any
democrática.
democratic
Sin
society.
embargo, para que su
However,
impacto
for
sea
this impact to
transformador,
be
no
transformative,
basta con
it
que
is not
exista
enough
como un
for
derecho
it
aislado.
to exist as
Es
an
necesario
isolated
que
right.
se
It must
convierta
become
en
an
una parte
integral
integral de la
part
gestión
of
pública
public
que
management,
atraviese todas las
cutting
áreas de
across all areas
decisión,
of decision
de
making,
planificación
planning,
y desde
and
luego de ejecución
execution
de las
of
políticas
public
públicas.
policies.
Este es el concepto de
This is the
transversalización,
concept of
garantizar
mainstreaming,
que el acceso a la información
meaning ensuring
no
that access to
solamente
information
sea
is not
un
only
derecho
a
en el
right on
papel,
paper,
sino que es una práctica
but a
cotidiana que
daily
influya en la
practice that
toma de
influences
decisiones
decision
y que
making
permita a la
and allows
ciudadanía
citizens to
ejercer un control
exercise effective
efectivo
control
sobre las
over the
acciones de sus
actions of their
gobiernos.
governments.
La transversalización del
The
acceso a la
mainstreaming of
información
access to information
implica que
implies
este
that
derecho
this
no quede
right should
confinado a
not
las
be
oficinas
confined to the
encargadas de
offices in charge
transparencia
of
o
transparency
rendición de
or
cuentas.
accountability.
Debe de estar presente en todos
It
los
must be
niveles
present
de
at all
gobierno
levels of
y en
government and
todas
in
las
all public
instituciones
sector
del sector público.
institutions.
Al incorporar el acceso a la
By
información
incorporating
en el
access to
diseño,
information in the design,
implementación y evaluación
implementation, and
de las
evaluation of
políticas
public
públicas,
policies,
se crean mecanismos que
mechanisms are
favorecen
created
una
that
mayor
favor greater
transparencia.
transparency,
Se fomenta la
encourage
participación ciudadana
citizen
y se
participation,
impulsa la
and
rendición de
promote
cuentas.
accountability.
Esto, a su vez,
This
fortalece la
strengthens
confianza de
citizens'
la
trust in
ciudadanía en las
institutions,
instituciones, un
which is
elemento
a
clave
key element
para el
for the
éxito de
success of
cualquier
any
democracia.
democracy.
Y un aspecto también
A key
determinante de esta
aspect of
integración
this
es la
integration
creación
is
de
the
una cultura
creation of an
organizacional en la
organizational
que el acceso a la
culture in which
información
access to
se ha visto
information
como
is
un valor
seen as an
intrínseco de la gestión
intrinsic
pública.
value of
Y
public
para ello
management.
es
To this
necesario que
end,
las
it is
instituciones
necessary
desarrollen
for
capacidades
institutions to
internas.
develop internal
No quiero
capacities.
abundar más
I don't
porque al
want to
final del
spend much
día
more time in this
quienes tienen
introduction
la
because
palabra para
what's important
participar en
today
este
is
panel
to
son
listen to our
distinguidas
panelists, our
autoridades de diversos
distinguished
países.
panelists and representatives
Así que
of
después de esta
uh,
breve reflexión, quiero agradecer la
institutions and their countries.
participación
So
a
I want to
nuestros
thank
ponentes.
the participation
Durante esta sesión que
of our
estamos
panelists during
transmitiendo
this
en
session being
YouTube
transmitted
para
in
que
YouTube
pueda ser vista en las distintas
to
partes
be
del
viewed
mundo,
in different parts of the
tendremos
world.
una ronda de
We will
intervenciones
have a
donde
round
cada
of
panelista
interventions
entre
where each
5 y
panelist
8
will have
minutos para
between
su
5 and
presentación.
8 minutes for their presentation.
Posteriormente, si hay algún
Afterwards,
comentario
if there's any remark,
final, estaremos invitándoles
we will
para que ustedes
invite you
puedan
all
intervenir.
to also
Nosotros les
participate.
estamos también invitando a que
We
la
are
audiencia que nos
also
sigue
asking
pueda
the
hacernos llegar
audience
sus
to
comentarios. Les haremos
share
llegar
their comments
vía las
with
redes
us
sociales,
through
correos
social media.
electrónicos
We will
para que
share
les
our
puedan
social media accounts
escribir
and
y de
email
esta
accounts so
forma
you can
hacernos llegar
contact us
también sus comentarios o
so
preguntas.
you can
Les
share all your
recordamos que
questions and
esta sesión
remarks.
será
I remind
grabada
you that
y
this
tiene
session is being
interpretación
recorded and
simultánea
has a
al
simultaneous
inglés y pueden
interpretation
encontrar el link
service,
correspondiente
and
en
you
la
can
parte
find
inferior de la
the
pantalla.
icon
Comenzamos esta
and the
actividad
lower
con la
part of your screen. Let's
participación
begin
de Flamenca
today's
Voxeva, directora de
participation
la
with
Agencia
Flamenca
de
Voxea
Protección del Derecho al Libre Acceso a la Información Pública de Macedonia del Norte. Flamenca
of North
cuenta con una
Macedonia.
amplia
Flamenca
experiencia en el sector
has
público, donde se ha
wide
desempeñado como
experience in the
jefa
public
del
sector,
sector
where she
de
has
asuntos del alcalde
headed
de Aredrom y también
uh,
como jefa del departamento de lista de
the sector of
votantes
affairs for the
de la
mayor and secretary of the
Comisión
municipality of
Estatal
Aedrom,
de
and
Elecciones de
also head
Macedonia
of
del
the
Norte.
votes list
Adelante,
department, election
Flamenca, y
commission.
muchas gracias por tu participación.
You have the floor, Flamenca, and thank you again for your participation.
Thank you, Ms. Blanca Ibarra, for the introductions. Greetings from North Macedonia. It's a pleasure to meet you all on the occasion to commemorate the 28th of September. I would like to, first of all, I would like to thank the Secretariat of International Conference of Information Commissioners, and especially the National Institute for Transparency, Access to Information and Personal Data Protection of Mexico for the organization of this event to mark the International Day for Universal Access to Information. And thank you for all your excellent work you are doing with this Secretariat. Thank you for inviting me to speak to today's event, and the topic you've chosen is very interesting because with the development of a technique and technology, the possibility of increasing the transparency of institutions from the public sector and the exchange of information is greatly facilitated. The integration of transparency and information exchange practices between government agency and the public sector in general significantly improves the delivery of public services by fostering collaboration, accountability, and efficiency. To the interoperability of institutions from the public sector in one system, a large number of institutions can be connected with exactly one goal: exchange of information. On the other hand, the self-initiated, timely, and up-to-date publication of information on websites allows the non-governmental organization, business sector, the scientific community, and citizens as a whole to be familiar with the information created and available by the public institutions. Interoperability is an ongoing process in North Macedonia, led by the Ministry of Digital Transformation. Unfortunately, our agency is not included in this process, which ministry also runs the portal for publishing information in an open format. But unfortunately, in my country, these possibilities are not used to a sufficient extent. Maybe one of the reasons for this is the fact that people are not familiar with the advantages that are offered with the integration of transparency and information exchange. I will refer to some of these advantages. First of all, the system offers improved coordination and cooperation. Interagency sharing of information reduces the duplication of efforts, as institutions can access and use each other's data. This fosters a more coordinated approach to addressing public needs, streamlining the response to complex issues like healthcare, social services, and law enforcement. Collaborative decision-making process become easier as the institution can work from the same set of data, leading to more comprehensive and effective policies. Secondly, enhance accountability and trust. Transparency in government operation builds public trust. A citizen can see how decisions are made and how resources are allocated. Clear communication between institutions and public ensures that government actions are visible and understandable, reducing corruption and fostering public confidence in provided services. Sharing of information provides fast service delivery. Streamlined processes through information sharing to minimize leads to bureaucratic red tape. For instance, sharing data between health, housing, and social welfare agencies allows for faster verification processes, reducing wait times for public services. Real-time information exchange enables quicker responses to emergencies and public needs, improving the government's ability to adapt to changed circumstances. Fourth benefit is data-driven decision-making. With integrated data, institutions can make more informed decisions, tailoring services based on accurate, comprehensive information. For instance, in urban planning, having data from transport, environment, and housing agencies allows for more holistic infrastructure development. Predictive analytics using shared data help identify emerging issues, allowing for proactive measures that enhance service delivery. Fifth, sharing of information also provides cost efficiency. This means that resource optimization is possible through information exchange, as institutions can reduce redundancies and share resources. This results in cost savings that can be reinvested in improving other public services. Automation of services facilitated by shared information systems allows governments to reduce manual processing, cutting costs, and speeding up service delivery. By integrating data from multiple sources, government institutions can provide personalized services that meet the specific needs of individuals or communities. For instance, social services can be better targeted by understanding the comprehensive needs of vulnerable population. Cross-agency initiatives such as integrating social welfare with job placement services provide holistic solutions to public issues. And last but not least, crisis management and emergency response. During crisis, for example, natural disaster or pandemics, information exchange between agencies allows for coordinated and rapid responses. Shared data enables government bodies to allocate resources efficiently and ensure that critical services are delivered where they are most needed. By integrating transparency in the information exchange practices, government agency can operate more cohesively, delivering services that are more effective, efficient, and responsive to the public needs. We should never forget that we, the government agencies and institutions, are services for the citizens, so we must answer their needs. At the conclusion of my presentation, I would like to share Abraham Lincoln's wise words: let the people know the facts, and the country will be safe. Thank you again for the invitation. Thank you for listening. I hope I'll see you on some other event. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Flamenca.
Thank you very much, Flamenca, for respecting our time constraints and your very valuable intervention. And we all agree on the relevance of the exchange of information between agencies, and also the way in which you are seeking to build a close and tight relationship with the society based on information which must be shared in a timely manner with the citizens. Now I present our second panelist, Ibrahim Shaw, Chairman and Information Commissioner, Right to Access to Information Commission of Sierra Leone.
En la Universidad de Northumbria, Reino Unido, y se ha desempeñado como secretario general de la Asociación.
He was a senior lecturer in media and politics at Northumbria University of Newcastle in UK. He has authored 5 books and over 30 academic papers. He has vast experience, but it is a great pleasure to give him the floor. Thank you. Please go ahead, Ibrahim.
Le pedimos que abra su micrófono, por favor.
Ibrahim, I'm sorry, I think your microphone is off. We cannot hear you.
Ibrahim, si puede abrir su micrófono, por favor.
Ibrahim, could you please open your microphone?
Bueno, ahora también no vemos la
Now,
imagen
we
de
lost
nuestro segundo
video
ponente,
from
y en
our second
tanto
panelist,
se resuelve
but while we
este
wait,
tema del audio y del video, pues quiero comentarles
I
que
want to take this time
en una
to
segunda ronda seguramente
tell you that
tendremos
in a
menos
second
tiempo
round,
para
maybe we'll have
las
less time
conclusiones
for
porque llevamos un
conclusions and
pequeño
questions because
retraso.
we are a
Mientras
bit
tanto,
behind on
quiero
today's
darles a
agenda.
conocer
But
un correo
meanwhile,
electrónico
I want
para
to
la
share with
gente
you
que nos sigue
the email
a
address
través de
for
nuestras
people
redes
following us through our
sociales
social media
de las
accounts
distintas plataformas para
in
que
different
podamos
platforms
conocer sus puntos de vista, sus
so they
comentarios.
can share with
El
us
correo
your
que
remarks,
estamos
comments.
atendiéndolo es
This email is
internacional@inai.org.mx.
internacional@inai.org.mx.
Si ustedes no tienen inconveniente, en tanto
While we
Nicole y
wait for
Joaquín
Ibrahim
se
to
puede
return to this
conectar,
call,
les pediremos que vayamos a
I would
nuestro
ask you
segundo panelista
to
para que
please
podamos
maybe give the
resolver
floor to
este
the third
problema.
panelist until we
Y en
can
ese
solve this
sentido,
issue.
el turno está
So we
ocupado.
give the
Vemos que
floor.
ya está
Oh,
listo
I see
aquí
Ibrahim ready now
Ibrahim Siga. Nos escucha y
to
si puede
present
usted hablar, por
as a
favor.
second panelist. Could you let us know if you're ready?
Hello. Yes, I thought I was waiting for the translation to finish before I continue. Are you getting me? Hello? Hello?
Sí, perfecto. Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
I just wanted to, yes, I can. Yes, I think the topic of discussion, mainstreaming information in the public sector, is a very important topic. Because when you look at access to information, it's not just for members of the public to have access to information. Also, people who are working in the public sector, they need information also to inform their decision-making processes. So therefore, this topic is very important. Hello? Hello?
Sí, le escuchamos. Continúe, por favor.
We can hear you just fine. Please continue.
Okay. And that is why in Sierra Leone, we have emphasized this proactive disclosure of information. You know, that all public authorities, according to Section 8, Section 8, subsection 2 of our Act, provides that all public authorities are obliged to proactively disclose information about what they do. 22 classes of information, minimum classes of information, on their websites, you know, as a way of promoting the supply and demand of information. Because in the first place, you have to stimulate demand. And the only way to stimulate demand is to provide more information so that people will come forward and then access the information that is available on the platforms. And then the information that is not available on the platforms, they can then go and seek. And so it will stimulate demand. It will make people to ask for information more. And also other public authorities who have the need for this information will have access to the information without needing to go and ask. Because if it's already there on the platform, you just access it and you make use of it without even going to ask anybody. So it makes for easy decision making in the public sector. But if the information is not available on the platforms, you know, even the public authorities will have to be moving from one public authority to another to request for information. And that will make it too cumbersome. So that is why information sharing cannot happen if more information is not proactively disclosed. That is what I really want to emphasize here. Proactive disclosure of information. Yeah, hello?
Sí, así es. ¿Todo bien? Le seguimos
Yes,
escuchando.
yes, we can hear you
Gracias.
fine. Thank you very much.
Yes. So most of the time when people talk about access to information, the only thing that comes to mind is the people who demand are only people who are civil society and ordinary people. No, that's not the case. You have people in the private sector, you have people in the public sector who need information. You know, so information sharing is very key. You know, just imagine like if auditors who are auditing financial accounts or financial statements of public authorities, if they can be denied access to certain information that will enable their work, how do you think they are going to be able to deliver their work? They will not be able to deliver on their mandate to audit financial to audit financial institutions. I mean, financial documents of institutions. If they write, and auditing is not just about financial documents; it's also about administrative documents. So if those documents are not available, are not made available to those auditors, who are also part of the government, because they are a kind of a behavioral body. You know, they are there to check and promote transparency and accountability. But if the information that they need to be able to deliver on their mandate, if that information is not made available to them, they will not be able to deliver. And that is why most times in some countries, particularly in the developing world, where when they say there is corruption, it's not necessarily the public officials are corrupt. It's just because they don't keep documents. When the auditing cycles come and the documents are demanded for, they don't provide them. And that's the problem. It's a major problem in the public sector at the moment. Information sharing is very poor, and we need to improve on that. Yeah.
No sé si ya concluyó su intervención.
I'm not sure if you have concluded your presentation, Dr. Ibrahim, or would you like to add anything else?
Hello?
Sí, doctor, le pregunto si ya concluyó
Doctor,
su
I was asking whether you
intervención o si
had
va
concluded your
a continuar.
intervention or would you like to add anything else?
So my time is up, eh? Hello?
Muchas gracias. Muy valiosos sus
Thank you very
comentarios. He
much.
tomado
Very
nota,
valuable
por
comments.
supuesto, y coincidimos
And we
que la
agree
relevancia que tiene el
on
acceso
the
a la
relevance
información
of
para
and the
una
importance of access to
ciudadanía
information
informada que
for an
pueda tomar
informed
mejores
citizenry that can
decisiones y,
make
por
better
supuesto,
decisions.
lo que también significa
And
hoy
this, of course,
promover una práctica de
requires
transparencia
promoting a
proactiva. La
practice of
divulgación
proactive
proactiva de
transparency.
la información coadyuva también
And
a
this
que tengamos
also helps
ciudadanía más informada, más
having a more
participativa. Y bueno,
informed
el intercambio de
citizenry
información
that
que se deba de
participates.
dar a todos los niveles, es decir,
And this
que
information,
no
of course, has
tengamos
to
ciudadanos
occur
de
at all
primera, de
levels.
segunda,
We shouldn't
sino
have
que
first class and second
realmente
class
la información
citizens.
pública pueda
Public
llegar a
information
todos
must
los
reach
sectores de la
every
población.
sector of the
Muchísimas
population.
gracias,
Thank you
doctor
so much,
Ibrahim.
Dr.
Y
Ibrahim.
pasamos ahora,
Now we give the
en
floor
este momento, le toca el turno a nuestro siguiente ponente,
to our next
Attila
panelist,
Pirifalvi,
Attila
presidente de la
Pirifalli,
Autoridad
Chairman of the National
Nacional
Authority
para la
for Data
Protección de
Protection
Datos
and
y
Freedom
Libertad
of
de
Information
Información de Hungría.
of
Attila
Hungary.
se graduó de la Facultad de
Attila
Ciencias
graduated at
Políticas y
Edvos
Derecho
Lauron
de la
University
Universidad
Faculty of
de
Political
Vos,
Science in
Lauran,
Law
y obtuvo
in
su doctorado
1981.
en la
And he
Universidad Nacional de Defensa Zhny Miklos. Entre 2001 y 2007 fue comisionado
between
parlamentario
2001 and
para la
2007, he was a
protección de datos y
parliamentary
la libertad
commissioner
de
for data protection and
información
freedom of
en
information in
Hungría.
Hungary,
Profesor honorario en la
honorary
Universidad
professor at
Reformada
the Karoli
Karol
Gaspar
y también
University
en
of
la
the Reformed
Universidad
Church,
Católica
and also at the
Pasmani
Pasmani
Peter en
Peter
Hungría. Es
Catholic
autor de más de
University in Hungary.
50
He has
publicaciones y sin más
authored over
cedo el uso de
50
la voz
articles,
a
and now I
nuestro
give the
siguiente
floor to
ponente,
our next
Attila Pirifalvi. Adelante, por favor. Muchas gracias.
panelist.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. First, I'd like to congratulate for organizing this conference. Then I'd like to thank my invitation to be a panelist. According to the subject of the panel, I'd like to mention two changes, recently changes in the Hungarian legislation. And then I'd like to mention an EU project. This EU project worth €2.5 million entitled Mapping Freedom of Information Practices and Changing Their Effectiveness in Hungary, which aimed at exploring the situation of freedom of information in Hungary. In the project, the authority carried out a comprehensive scientific approach, exploration of the status of freedom of information, and obtained a reliable picture of the level of it at national level, the problem areas, and the means to address them. The authority closed this project in 2022, and as a result, the data controllers are supported by guides and manuals, and there were some recommendations for the policymakers and the legislators, but the act hasn't been changed yet, so we are still waiting for the modification. But it's very important to declare that as the result of the research is clearly confirmed that proactive publication is one of the most important tools for enforcing freedom of information. The two changes in the legislation in Hungary, one was the monitoring function given to the authority, and the second was an administrative procedure for transparency also given to the authority. So I'd like to mention that these two new tools of the authority origin from the European Commission. They were formulated as claims in the so-called conditionality mechanism linked to the supervision of the use of EU budgetary funds. But these two new tools are very important. The first one is the monitoring function from the authority. I have to say that the obligation for the data controllers was before also in the legislation, so it's not a total new function. It means that the organs performing public duties had and have to provide data by 31 of January of each year, have to send a report to the authority each years by year about the number of granting and rejecting requests and the characteristic reasons of rejection, the average number of days needed to grant the request, and an accurate internet accessibility to the location where the data are published. The new step is that the authority, after studying the received data, may start a monitoring procedure, and in this monitoring procedure the authority may ask more concrete figures and data in connection the complaints, and the organ must send the answer within 8 days, so it's a short limit time for answering, and the authority make may make recommendations to the monitored organs this is very important. So it's not an administrative procedure. The authority couldn't impose fine in this procedure, but I think it's important to help the organ to make wider the freedom of information. The second tool, the second new procedure is a transparency administrative procedure. It is an administrative procedure, so it means that the authority may impose a fine in connection with this procedure, and the maximum of the fine is from 200 euros to 120,000 euros, so it's more than the maximum of the fines in data protection cases with the same organs. And the government had to create a central information public data register, and these organs have to publish financial management data on this website, on this registry, and if not, the authority starts an administrative procedure. The organs have to publish the financial data. It means that at least 12,000 euros granted by them, the domestic or European Union funds, must be published, and at the 28th of every second month, and the authority ex officio or after getting a complaint start this transparency procedure. I'd like to mention only a very interesting and very important figure and statistic that we started this procedure 1st of March 2023, and almost 1 billion euro public funds became more transparent through this new tool authority. So I think it was not the result of the EU project, but it's similar, and I think it was very useful to create this central database, central website, and the financial data can be reached on a very simple way from this website. So we are satisfied with these changes in the legislation, and we got more budget and more staff to start this procedure. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Attila, por estos comentarios.
Thank you very much, Attila. A very interesting mechanism. I'd like to here emphasize the 4 days time that you mentioned for the delivery of information. This provides for a faster access to information from the citizens. There are other countries where the law provides for longer terms. This is a good practice in your country. This is 4 days. We are a little behind today, so let's now give the floor to our next panelist, Danica Orcullo, from the Policies Planning of the Office of Freedom of Information Programs of the Presidential Communications Office of Philippines. Danica has been leading the compliance monitoring, freedom of access, and has more than 18 years of experience in public service. Danica was trained in information sciences and bibliotechnology from the Santo Tome University, and she's also certified in public procurement level 1. So I'm now going to give the floor to Danica, and thank you for your very valuable presence today.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Greetings from the Philippines. It is my great pleasure to be part of this panel session. So to start, I have prepared the slides. So the cornerstone of transparency in the Philippine government is Executive Order Number 2, Series of 2016, which operationalizes the Freedom of Information Program for agencies within the executive branch. So this order mandates that all national government agencies such as departments for education, national defense, environment, for example, government-owned and controlled corporation such as social security system, local water districts, and state universities and colleges must appoint a minimum of 2 FOI officers. So namely, receiving officer and a decision maker. So these officers are responsible for facilitating and processing FOI requests, ensuring compliance and adhering to transparency policies. In support of these, we have several key programs we have been developed. So in 2016, we have developed the electronic FOI portal. So this platform allows citizens to submit and track FOI requests online, ensuring a more efficient and transparent process for public access for government information. We also issued retention and reduction policy for specific. This is a policy for specific government officials and employees that certain sensitive personal information in a public record which is accessible, such as the sworn statement of assets and liabilities, is redacted for privacy while balancing the transparency. Next is we also have the no wrongdoer policy. So this policy ensures that no request is turned away. If the request is mistakenly directed to an incorrect agency, the agency must redirect the requester to the appropriate office. So this fosters a smooth information exchange across agencies and prevents gaps in the service. So here in the Philippines, we have innovated and implemented the ladderized capacity development system for FOI officers. So since they play a significant role in improving transparency and public service delivery, this system equips FOI officers with the skills and knowledge they need to implement the FOI program effectively. So here's how it works. The ladderized system is comprised of 3 levels. So first level is the conduct of the FOI orientation and consultation system. So this is a 3-hour introductory session where FOI officers learn the basics of the FOI program, the complementary of FOI policies, as well as the use of the electronic FOI portal. So this helps them understand the fundamental principles and practices of the FOI program. So the next level, the level 2, is the FOI bootcamp for newly designated FOI officers. So this is a more intensive 3-day training that provides deeper insights in the FOI program operations, as well as the electronic FOI portal and discussion of different reportorial requirements of our office for monitoring and evaluation. So this training is critical for new FOI officers and helps ensure consistency in processing FOI requests. And The last level is the level 3. We have two components under this. We have the FOI Hangouts. So this is a one-day session gathering and where FOI officers gather annually for from various agencies to share their best practices, experiences, discuss challenges, and explore innovative ways to improve FOI implementation. The second component under the level 3 is the certificate course for information officers. So this is a 56-hour program that covers an in-depth discussion on the Executive Order Number 2, its related policies, and as well as many topics that discusses the role of access to information in the broader Philippine administrative system, along with the key concept in data privacy, records management, e-governance, digital transformation, data ethics, and security. So through these structured development activities, FOI officers are better prepared to ensure that public service requests are processed efficiently, information is readily available, and compliance with the transparency policies is consistent across all government agencies. This is not only to improve the quality of public services, but also reduces responses time and enhances accountability within the government. So Filipinos are among the top social media users globally. So every morning people wake up and the first thing they check is their social media. And I am one among them. Imagine the sheer volume of information they encounter. Everything can be searched online, but not all of this information is reliable. So this is where information disorder becomes a problem. People are bombarded with misinformation, disinformation, and unreliable sources. But with a well-functioning FOI mechanism, citizens can access legitimate and accurate information directly from the government, especially through the eFOI or the electronic FOI portal. So this portal allows them to get reliable data directly from the sources agencies, ensuring that they are not misled by the flood of unreliable information online. The FOI request or the FOI process rather can take up to 15 working days. But even so, this encourages greater trust because citizens know that they are receiving verified official information rather than an instant but potentially false information online. The continuous capacity development of FOI officers ensures that citizen requests are handled professionally and that the government offices are transparent in their action. By making information accessible, the government fosters a culture of openness, encouraging citizens to participate more actively in governance, knowing that the government is accountable and transparent. So that's all from my end, and I will be happy to answer if there's any question during the open forum. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Danica. Aquí está la comisionada.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Tomé
Danica.
nota también y me parece importante
I was
destacar,
taking
entre
notes,
otros,
and it's
las
important
observaciones y reflexiones que
to
nos ha
highlight as
ofrecido
part of
nuestra
the
ponente
observations and
sobre la
reflections
certificación de 56
the
horas que
56-hour
realizan ustedes para que las y
certification
los servidores públicos
that is
que se
required
encargan de
by
atender
public
los
officers
temas de
who are
acceso a la
treating information
de
access
privacidad,
issues
pues
and
tengan las
privacy
herramientas
matters to
suficientes,
be
las
equipped with the
capacidades
necessary tools
necesarias
and
para
the
de esa
necessary
manera darle
skills
certidumbre
so
a
they
la
can
atención de
provide
la información
certainty
que se está requiriendo.
to the
Comparto
information
también
needs.
ampliamente la preocupación que existe,
I
pero
also
sobre todo
share the same
las
concern,
acciones que
existing
se han
concern, but
emprendido, en
also
este caso en
the
particular en Filipinas,
actions
para que la
taken by the
información que se
Philippines
recibe a
to
través de
guarantee
las
that
redes
all
sociales,
information
en ese
received on
mar de
social media,
información en que
in
estamos
this
envueltos,
sea of
la gente
information,
pueda tener
for
la
people to be
información
able to
confiable.
access
Es
to
decir,
reliable,
me
trustworthy
parece que es muy
information.
oportuno,
So I
como
believe this
sucede
to be a
también en
very
otros
timely
países
measure.
como en México, que
The
existan
same can be said of
plataformas
other
o
countries such as
portales
Mexico,
que
to have
concentren
access
esa
to platforms or
información de
portals
fuentes
concentrating
verídicas.
information from
Creo
truthful
que
sources.
son buenos
I believe
ejemplos,
these are
lo
good
que ella
examples.
mencionaba también, Danica, en esas sesiones que tienen
Just
para
as Danica
compartir
mentioned,
buenas
they
prácticas.
are
De
also
manera
organizing
que quiero
sessions
pues
for good
celebrar,
practice sharing.
reconocer las
So I
participaciones
really
que tienen
applaud
cada uno de
all
ustedes
of our
en sus
speakers and
países.
the initiatives
Pregunto
of them
a
in their
nuestra directora
countries.
de acceso,
And I'd like
Jimena
to
Sierra,
ask
si
Jimena
tenemos
Sierra, our
tiempo
Access
para una
Director, if we
segunda
have
ronda
time
o
for
si
a second round
concluimos
or if we
para que
should
podamos
move
continuar
on
con el
to our next
último
panel,
panel en esta sesión.
the last panel for the
Muchas
day.
gracias, comisionada. Salvo su
Commissioner,
sugerencia, yo indicaría que
the
podríamos
suggestion would
continuar al
be
siguiente
to move
panel,
on to
dado
the
que
next
vamos
panel,
con
given that
25
we already
minutos
have
de
are
retraso. Si no
already
tiene
25
inconveniente,
minutes
podríamos
late in our
proceder al
agenda.
cierre y bienvenida al
So
siguiente
the
panel. Muchas
suggestion is
gracias.
to close this panel and
Muchas
open the
gracias.
next one.
Bueno, la verdad es
Thank
que
you.
esto nos motiva a tener un siguiente encuentro.
This is
Creo que nos abre
actually
la
more
posibilidad
of an
de
invitation
continuar
to
con
meet
este
once again
diálogo en otras sesiones. Yo creo que los
and
distintos
to continue
países que
this
están
conversation
últimamente
in
representados
the
por
future.
ustedes
I
han dado
think
muestra
your
en
countries
esta
have
conversación, en esta mesa de
provided
diálogo,
evidence
de las
during
buenas
this
prácticas que se
conversation
siguen, del impulso
of
que
the
se
best
está dando
practices
desde los gobiernos de los países que también ustedes
that your
representan.
countries have.
Quiero reiterar la importancia de lo que hemos
And just
abordado
to
el día de hoy, la
reiterate the relevance of
transversalización del
today's
acceso a la información en el
topic,
sector
mainstreaming
público,
the access of
no solamente
information
representa
to
un reto,
information in the
sino
public
una
sector is not only a
oportunidad
challenge,
que
but
debemos
an
aprovechar y seguir
opportunity, one that
buscando
we
construir
must leverage.
instituciones transparentes en beneficio de la gente. Quiero agradecer sinceramente a nuestros dignos
I
representantes
would
que
like
aceptaron
to
participar
sincerely
en
thank
esta
our
tarde, en este
representatives who
día,
have
por sus
participated
valiosas
today,
contribuciones y a todos ustedes por su atención. Reciban un
and thank you
saludo
all for
muy
your attention.
especial hasta sus países. Saben que en México, en este país, tienen al INAI, una institución
You know
que a
that
través de las y los
at
comisionados
INAI,
que trabajamos en el Pleno, seguiremos
we
dispuestos a seguir sumando
are
en las
always
redes
willing to keep
internacionales, como lo es la Conferencia de
working
Comisionados de Información, la Red para la Integridad
networks
y en el
like
caso de
the
América
the network
Latina,
for
la Red de
integrity in the
Transparencia.
case of Latin America, the
Nuevamente,
network for
muchísimas
transparency.
gracias, Flamenca, muchas gracias,
Thank you
Atila,
very
gracias,
much to
Danica,
our
gracias,
guests,
Ibrahim.
Danica,
A todos
Flamenca,
ustedes les
Ibrahim,
invitamos
Attila,
a continuar a nuestro último
and
panel
please stay with us
que
for the
será
next panel,
coordinado por el
which will
comisionado
be
presidente
moderated
del
by
INAI,
our
Adrián Alcalá Méndez,
chairman,
en esa
Commissioner
misma
Adrian
entrega
Alcala
para que
Mendez.
continúen con
Stay
nosotros.
on this
Muchísimas
same link
gracias.
with
Buenos
us.
días, buenas
Thank you
tardes.
Thank
again.
you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, comisionada, por la moderación de este panel. Agradezco también
Thank you,
nuevamente a
Commissioner, for
nuestros
moderating this panel,
panelistas.
and thank you
Y
to
con
all our
ello
panelists.
damos a continuación inicio al tercero de nuestros
So
paneles, al
with
cual
this, would like
titulamos
to move on
Los
to the
retos
third
de la
panel
inclusión del acceso a la
entitled
información en las
The
políticas públicas. Este
Challenges
panel está a cargo de los miembros de la Red de Transparencia y Acceso a la Información.
to
En esta
Transparency
red, el
Access.
INAI funge como
In
secretaria
this network,
ejecutiva.
NI is
A efecto de
acting
iniciar este
executive
panel,
secretary.
cedo la palabra con mucho
I'd
gusto
now
al
like to give the
comisionado
floor to
presidente del
our
INAI,
Commissioner,
Adrián Alcalá Méndez,
Chairman
quien
of
moderará este
INAI,
espacio.
Adrián
Nuevamente,
Alcalá
presidente, muchas
Mendez.
gracias. Le cedo el uso de la voz.
Thank you.
Jimena, muchísimas gracias.
Commissioner, the
Muy
floor is
buen
yours.
día
Thank you very
acá en
much,
México a todas
Jimena.
y a todos. Buenas,
Good
buenas
morning in
tardes.
Mexico.
En
Good afternoon
algunas
to
partes del
some of our
mundo,
guests who
en
are around the
esta
world.
conmemoración del Día
Today we are
Internacional
celebrating the
del Acceso Universal a la
International
Información y
Day
para mí es un alto honor
for universal access to
notar
information,
las reacciones, perdón.
and
Creo que
it's
aquí se quedó
a great
pegado.
honor
No
for
sé cómo se
me.
quita.
I'm trying to remove the reaction. Just 1 second, please. I'm not sure what to do about this.
Quiero que nos estemos aquí
Ya no se ve, comisionado
Listo, ya.
presidente.
Gracias, muy amable.
Thank
Bien,
you.
muy buen día, les decía, aquí en México, en Latinoamérica. Ya
Good
medio
morning
tarde,
in
tarde
Mexico, Latin
y
America. Good
noches en algunas
afternoon.
partes del mundo. Es
Good
para mí
evening,
un
even
honor,
to
un
some of our
alto honor
guests around the
moderar
world. To me,
este
it's a great
panel
honor to
con el
moderate this
marco internacional
panel
Día Internacional
in the
del Acceso
framework
Universal
of
de
the
Información.
International Day for
Es
Universal
una
Access to
fecha que
Information,
nos invita a
a day
reflexionar
that
sobre la
invites us to reflect
importancia
on the
de un derecho
importance of a
fundamental
fundamental
que es el del
right,
acceso a información.
which is access to information. This day, proclaimed by UNESCO, recognizes that access to information is an essential pillar to promote transparency, accountability, and citizen participation in democratic societies. Today's topic, the challenges of inclusion and access to information in public policies, takes on special relevance in a global context where society demands greater transparency and equity in access to information. The inclusion of this right in public policies is fundamental to ensure that all people, regardless of their socioeconomic status, gender, or geographic location, can access information in a fair and equitable manner. Encouraging this type of discussion gives us the opportunity to open spaces for dialogue and reflection on how we can overcome the obstacles that limit access to information in our societies. It further allows us to discuss, learn from international experiences, and above all, build strategies to ensure that this right does not remain only on paper, but becomes a reality for everyone. With this in mind, I would like to begin this panel by thanking our distinguished speakers for their participation, who will share their vision and experiences on this important topic. During this session, we will have a round of interventions where each panelist will have between 5 and 8 minutes for the presentation, and later we will have a brief space for questions. The audience will be able to write their questions or comments in the chat, and they will be read in this opportunity. The session is being recorded, and we also have simultaneous interpretation into English. You can find the icon for interpretation at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Today we begin with Maria Gracia, head of the Guarantor of of Access to Information in Buenos Aires. Maria Gracia graduated from the University of Mendoza, Argentina, and holds a PhD from the Northeastern University. She is also a research associate at the Center for the Implementation of Public Policies for the Promotion of Equity and Growth, and is a member of the Institute of Methodology of Sciences of the National Academy of Moral and Political Sciences of Argentina. Maria Gracia, the floor is yours for up to 8 minutes. You will hear me
Perfecto.
announce when your time
Buenos
is
días, buenas
coming up
tardes, buenas noches, depende de los
to wrap
horarios.
up.
Muchísimas gracias al INAI por esta
Thank you. Good
invitación
morning. Good
y
afternoon.
muchísimas
Thank
gracias
you
a Adriana Alcalá,
to
comisionado
INAI,
presidente del INAI, y a Blanca Lili Ibarra, que siempre están
Commissioner
abriendo estas
Ancalila
oportunidades
Ibarra.
de
Thank you so much
intercambio
for
de
opening always
experiencias
spaces
para
for
compartir y para
exchange
ir
and
mejorando todos y cada uno de
to
nosotros
share
en
our
nuestras tareas.
experiences so we
Bueno,
can
voy a poner
all
una presentación
improve
rápidamente, así no
in
como
our
más
work.
tiempo.
So just very quickly, I'd like to
Denme
share a
un minuto.
presentation. Just give me 1 minute.
Ahí estamos. Bueno, el panel 3 refería al tema de las redes.
Panel
¿Y qué
3
papel juegan las
is about
organizaciones
networks
internacionales y las redes
and the
regionales
role of
en
international
apoyar a nuestros otros
organizations and
países
regional networks in
latinoamericanos en la
supporting
mejora del
us
derecho de acceso a la
in
información
Latin
en
America
esta
in
semana del
improving
derecho a
our
saber
access to
y
information?
prontos a celebrar el derecho del Día del Acceso a la Información? Bueno, todos sabemos, y esto lo pasamos rápido porque han
So,
sido
as we all
nortes
know,
las leyes modelos de la OEA, la
we have
1.0 y la 2.0, en cuanto
relevant
a las variables de calidad
laws
normativa que
like
las
the
normas
OAS
de
Public
nuestros
Information
países o de
Access
nuestros gobiernos
that
subnacionales
have
deberían tener
have
para
helped
gozar de
change
una calidad
the
normativa
outlook
que
to improve
permitiera la
the
garantía del
regulation
derecho de acceso a la
and
información. Entonces, tanto la transparencia
therefore
activa en
access
su
to
faceta
transparent
activa y
information.
reactiva, los órganos garantes garantizando el ejercicio, la legitimación amplio, el proceso
Also
de
to
reforma, los
guarantee
principios
the
aplicables.
access
Y
to
luego la ley modelo
rights and the
2.0, que
principles
me
of
parece de
transparency. Then we
relevancia
have
en esta
2.0,
presentación,
which
donde
is a
después de
very
10
relevant
años de
law where
experiencia
after
de las leyes
10
regionales,
years
en algunos
of
países ya
experience in the
nacionales y
regional
otros que
law,
llegaron un poco más tarde, decía, ¿dónde ponemos el foco ahora después de
the
esta
question was,
experiencia y de estos
where
años? Bueno,
should
se
we
plantea la
focus our
necesidad de tener
attention
una
after
perspectiva de
these
género,
years?
se plantea la necesidad de que
The
este
need
exitoso
for a
acceso a la
gender
información
perspective was
sea de
made
todos y de
evident,
todas,
the
pero en
need for
especial de
access to
aquellos que se
information to be
encuentran
for everyone,
atravesados
but
por
more
alguna
particularly for
vulnerabilidad.
those who are in a vulnerable position. This is why we speak in terms of disseminating and guaranteeing these rights. And it's important to zoom into the transparency.
De la información útil y necesaria que el Estado debe producir y poner a disponibilidad de los mismos. Este es el panorama que tenemos en Latinoamérica y el Caribe.
This is the landscape in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Gracias a Dios, la región cuenta con leyes en cada uno de estos países, salvo 2 o 3 países. O sea que
So there are,
decir que
except for 2 or 3 countries, most of us have this type of regulation.
Interesante traerlo en relación a que nuestra región
Our region is one that is almost free of any war situations, but there's a lot of inequality. Inequality that is linked to vulnerability. A heat map shows that the Latin American region has an important problem of inequality. Vulnerability also includes vulnerability and discrimination and exclusion due to social, political, economical reasons. And this is for these reasons that citizens cannot access their rights, especially in this case, access to information. So this right, this human right, as we all know, being commissioners, we need to guarantee the access to this right. It's an obligation of the access of the government. And in this case, it becomes even more relevant as an instrument. The reason for this is that international cooperation and networks empowers those that are affected by vulnerability, allowing them to know where they stand, understand their rights, the rights they hold, the rights that they have to make claims in order not to be seen as favors from the state. So ICIC, RTA, and other cooperation organisms have set the pace to cooperate between the different guarantor bodies at the different regional and national and subnational levels. And here I'd like to mention the work of RTA for vulnerable groups. First, we had to map who these groups are. Of course, there are some differences, but there is a certain group where there is an absolute coincidence in the vulnerabilities that citizens have to their rights. Many of these also have several angles that are similar, like indigenous groups, children, boys and girls, women, and migrants. And this very relevant work that allows us to understand how to share our experiences, copy each other's experiences, improve each other's experiences, replicate the characteristics of our countries. We found that there are many interesting practices along the region. But what do we need? What do guarantor bodies need to continue working with vulnerable populations? First of all, monitoring and evaluation. There's a lack of resources in following these practices to understand the results of well-designed practices. So there is a concern of guarantor bodies. There is a need that we must face creatively because resources more frequently do not abound. When it comes to recommendations, improving the systematic data collection to design public policies, as well as improving the knowledge of right, so that this is not niche, right? The need to lower access barriers and guarantee accessibility of indigenous languages, disabilities, the need to build concrete tools, and improve participation of co-creation with multiple actors, whether international networks or organizations. RTA is a very important work that I'd like you to know. The agreement of Escazú is a regional agreement that has not yet been signed by all, but 24 signatures have already been granted. Access to information is an irrelevant arm of this tool, and it focuses on vulnerable groups, as well as access to environmental information by these groups. So while in general, our diagnosis shows that our regulations are robust, there is a more variable, a more complex variable where we have the worst results, which is the promotion and dissemination of information. So we need to be working along those lines using our cooperation networks. So let's celebrate the existence of our networks, RTA, ICIC, cooperation organisms, so we can work jointly for everything that affects us at the national and subnational level. And let's continue exchanging creative experiences, learnings, to strengthen ourselves as a region in a moment and context where the access to information has had some setbacks. Thank you.
Gracias, de verdad, María Gracia.
Thank you, Maria Gracia. Thank you. And moving on, around the end, we will continue with a brief summary of. Next, I'd like to introduce Anatulia de Macedo, National Secretary of Information Access in Brazil. Anatulia Macedo was appointed as Secretary of Access to Information in 2023. She is a lawyer from the School of Law of the University of Sao Paulo with a specialization in human rights. She has 20 years of professional experience, 12 of which have been in the public sector. Anatulia, I thank you for your participation, and the floor is yours. You have up to 8 minutes. I will let you know when you have 1 minute left. Thank you, Adrián. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I'd like to greet my colleagues I am happy to share this space with you, Maria Gracia from Buenos Aires, Eduardo Luna from the National Authority for Transparency and Access to Public Information of Peru, Sheila Castillo de Arias and Juan Pablo Rodriguez from the National Transparency Authority and Access to Information of Panama. So I'd like to start by affirming that access to information is a great challenge and an activity that cannot be separated from the information and the government. It exists to guarantee the access to rights and controlling the execution of public policies. So access to information cannot be ever disconnected from the evaluation of policies. While very strictly linked, it requires being aware of the importance to access of information with a focus on citizens. To guarantee access to public service and policies, it is necessary to have clear information for the citizens describing the nature of service policies. Also, access to information allows to guarantee rights. Citizens access available information to understand the rights, the violation to the rights, and know how to proceed in these cases. Access to information is also essential to guarantee controlling the execution of public service policies by society. The path towards inclusion, while necessary, is not simple. It is necessary to take into account governance, including, of course, access to information from its inception, which requires training. In Brazil, we require training in the federal public administration institutions. This requires also a change in the culture, and one of the first steps in Brazil was to go from the culture of secret to the culture of access, which has different levels. One of the first steps for this is to never doubt that it's a right of citizens to access information on public policy. But there is a long way to go. There are not many mechanisms in Brazil, and this is a difficulty faced also by other members. There are still some who believe, who do not understand that transparency has to start with the design of policy. This is still a challenge in Brazil, integrating transparency in all phases of public policies as indispensable. We have made strides in access culture, but there's still a long way to go. On the other hand, Brazil has some facilitators for information access on public policies, of which some are worth highlighting. Even before the publishing of the Access to Information Law, the federal Brazilian government already had a transparency portal that brings together the different expenses of the agencies of the executive federal branch, a portal that is managed by the Comptroller's Office of the Union. Also managing the unified system of the federal government, managing requests. The system FalaBay, which is a unified system that promotes standardizing procedures by agencies, as well as facilitating identification by users. Any citizen can request information from public organisms. Other states can also use it. Recently, the CGU made a tool available for automatic labeling of personal data in documents with the use of artificial intelligence. This measure will help reduce the negative response to requests to access information. CGU as supervision organ for the information access law assesses information from the different organizations, provides trainings for public servants. It also has invested in nationalizing the effective access to information. The federative Brazilian model that's characterized by the division of powers, and it provides each state the autonomy to legislate on different aspects of their interest. This is expressed in the implementation of the law, which, even though it states the need for a framework, there is a definition of specific procedures, and each state implements it accordingly. This decentralization allows for each region to be considered in the application of law. Here we highlight the initiative, a recent initiative, which is the launch of a network for transparency and access to information, which is a forum for the Regi for the different states and municipalities to guarantee a dialogue between these units and other units of the government, civil society, and academia. Regarding joint action, here it's important to highlight the important role that international organizations such as the UN, OAS, and others have, as well as regional networks such as RDA and ICIC, in the continuous search for excellence in the application of the right to access information. These fora allow for collective activity to promote access to information. I'd like to finish by saying that universal access to information should provide results, but it cannot be done in isolation. E-exchange in international and national fora allows us to share practices and innovations and to collectively build solutions that are relevant in the promotion of the universal access to information. And promotion of information access has to be effective for citizens, and therefore it cannot be done in a disconnected manner when it comes to public policies. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anatulia, for this very interesting reflection on the challenges facing organizations that access for information organizations face in Brazil, which is a very important region for everyone's work. Now we will move on to the presentation by Eduardo Luna Cervantes, General Director of the National Authority for Transparency and Access to Public Information of Peru. Eduardo is a lawyer from the University of Lima with a master's degree in constitutional law from the Pontifical University of Peru, where he teaches. He has an extensive experience in public service in Peru, where he has worked as an official in the Ombudsman Office as a member of the Police Disciplinary Tribunal of the Ministry of the Interior. I now give the floor to Eduardo Luna. Thank you for his participation on this panel. Go ahead.
Muchas gracias, Jimena.
Thank you very much, Jimena,
Medio también agradecer
and everyone else here, Marca Lilia Ibarra, for the invitation, and the INAI as a whole, Adrian, great friend, and of course, this important panel full of friends and colleagues. Thank you, Anatulia, Sheila, Pablo. It's great to greet you all. Well, today I will limit myself to two remarks based on these topics suggested. I think that it's important to have some reflections mainly on the challenges that Ibero-American countries are facing in this attempt to integrate access to public information to public policy. And secondly, I will talk about the role of international organization and networks such as the RTA in the support of Latin American countries in this endeavor. I think that's important to talk about the rhino or the bull in the crystal shop. It's important to protect warrantor bodies from political influence. I think this is a very complicated topic, of course, and information generates truth, which sometimes makes the power uncomfortable. And the power leans towards control. When an autonomous institution decides over controversies and can present information to the citizenry, well, this can make whatever powers in office uncomfortable. And facilitating that public discourse is based in prejudice and genuine prejudice or determinations, or artificially construct this institutionality and guarantee this fundamental right. And we have examples in this region, such as our colleagues in Mexico. They are currently facing such a situation. And this has happened throughout this region throughout many years. This institutionality, we could talk about many experiences 20 years in the past. And I think it's important to win in the public debate, public discourse, and convince everyone that access to rights, such as Donald Ward said, well, rights must be taken seriously. And this implies building institutionalities to warranty them. If someone evokes or asks for a right, obviously there's an obligation on the other hand, and an institutionality that should make it effective. If does not exist, well, this is just like wet paper. Our right becomes wet paper. So in the measure that a democracy has a strong institutionality to guarantee these rights, it will have a better opportunity to warranty the opportunities, liberties, and rights to its citizenry. When we speak, and this is, of course, of all human rights. So the difficulty lies in meeting these opposing political forces and wager for a human resources team that is professional, well trained, and that resolves all their matters in a competent manner to incide in public policy at a short, medium, and long term. And this can only be done with an autonomous, independent, and professional team. My second comment is in regard on the important role that the Ibero-American network has played and the regional spaces that we all share, the influence, which is quite notable, of all international organisms. We have talked about the important influence of the Transparency Network and the space offers for the OECD and the joint work in the elaboration of the 2.0 model law. And this has served as an important reference or standard in Latin America, and particularly in Peru, to strengthen some key points about, for example, in Peru, the new regulation. We just had a new transparency law, and we are incorporated many aspects of this model law. For example, the transmission of information through email, digital tools, reserve and secret information in public registries. This has been codified for the citizens to have access to this information. We cannot deny the influence of the Inter-American Court in emblematic cases such as Blue Reyes versus Chile, which has served to interpret the exceptions to the law, and these have to be restrictive because we're talking about a fundamental right, and we're doing this through a regulation that has to have a legal framework and scope because we're talking about a fundamental right. The efficacy, the judicial efficacy of the principle of transparency, these are topics that have touched on emblematic cases of the Ibero-American Court, Latin American Court, and I can say this with many resolutions of courts in Peru in terms of access to information. And finally,
como también olvidar informes
we cannot
importantes
forget
como
important
el de la
reports
Procuraduría Especial de la Libertad de Expresión de la
such
OEA,
as
con
the report on freedom
criterios
of information of the
elementos
OEA,
importantes como
with
la de la
important
prueba de
elements
daño, ¿no?
such as a
Donde no
proof of
solamente basta
damage,
con
where
clasificar
it's not
cierta
enough to just
información
classify
en
certain
alguna de las
information in
excepciones,
some
sino
of the
además
exceptions,
tiene la
but
administración de
also
demostrar que
the
de
administration has
divulgarse
to
esta
demonstrate
información
that the disclosure of this
hay
information
un daño efectivo cierto que se
causes
produce en algún
real
bien
damage.
jurídico tutelado por el ordenamiento, ¿no? Entonces, estos
So
conceptos que no
these
están, por ejemplo,
concepts
expresamente en la ley
that are not
peruana,
expressly
son
included in the
incorporados por la doctrina
Peruvian
nacional, son
law
incorporados por los
are
órganos
incorporated
resolutivos
by
y
the
allí se puede
resolution
apreciar el
organizations, and
impacto
there
importante,
we
¿no?
can
Por cierto,
appreciate
son
the important impact. And of course,
utilizados en las
these are
opiniones
used
preceptivas de
in
los
the
informes jurídicos
consultative
que elabora esta
opinions
Autoridad Nacional
prepared
de
by this
Transparencia y Acceso a
National
la Información
Authority
Pública de
on
Perú.
Transparency and
Para
Access to Public
finalizar,
Information.
en
To
10
end,
segundos,
just last
solo
10
decir
seconds,
también que es muy
I would like
importante
to
el
add that it's
grupo de
very
trabajo
important to
de
focus on
jurisprudencia y
the
derechos
group
administrativos
work
de la
on
Red para la
jurisprudence and
Defensa del Acceso a la
administrative
Información que nos
efforts
permite
of the Network
socializar
for
temas
Access to Information
importantes sobre los
that allows us to
contenidos de
talk
nuestras
about the
leyes
content of
de
our
transparencia,
laws for
las
transparency,
recomendaciones
the
para el acceso a la información
recommendations for the access
pública
to
en
public
dispositivos
information
electrónicos, correos
in
electrónicos es, por ejemplo,
email
alguno de
and
ellos.
electronic
Y la
devices. These are
labor
some of the criteria
intensa que
included.
hace la red para
And the
difundir, por
intense
ejemplo, a través de
efforts
sus
of the
reportes y de
network,
resoluciones relevantes
such
de
as
sus
its
directores,
last
los principales
2023
casos
report,
resueltos, las
disclosing
principales
the
opiniones,
most
los
important
informes
cases
jurídicos más
solved
relevantes de la región que nos permiten
and
a
the
todos
judicial
conocer y
issues that are
tomarle
most
la
important to
temperatura
our
al estado de la
to the
aplicación de este
region, so we
importante
can
derecho
measure the
humano.
temperature
Muchas
of
gracias
this
y éxitos
current
en lo que hagan.
work throughout the region. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, estimado
Thank you very
Eduardo, y
much,
desde luego
dear Eduardo.
agradezco
Of
que
course,
hayas traído
I
a
thank you
colación el caso
for
específico de
mentioning
México y por lo
the
que
specific
estamos
case of
atravesando
Mexico,
y
the current
seguramente
situation
habrá
we
casos
are going
similares
through.
en la región
And I'm sure
que
there are
tendrán
similar
aquí
cases throughout
ocasión
the
de
region, and we have heard of
compartir.
similar cases throughout the
Entonces creo
region.
que podría rescatar de las cosas que dijiste, desde luego el
So,
comentario es muy
from
atinado,
everything
sin
you have
duda y
said,
es justo,
I think you have
pero
been
cómo
very accurate in your
es que
remarks.
justamente
But
por lo que atraviesa México y por lo que
this current
seguramente hemos
situation in
atravesado
Mexico,
otros países,
and this
tiene que ver
situation that
con
has been
la
experienced in other countries, this has to
institucionalidad
do
que
with the
mencionabas, ¿no?
institutionality
Y que
that
al
you
final
mentioned.
son
Ultimately,
conceptos que se
these are
concatenan, la
concepts
institucionalidad,
that
y que
have to
tiene
be
que ver con la
linked.
democracia y que
Institutionality has to
además esto
do with
tiene que ver con
democracy,
la
and this
garantía de
also
los
has to do
derechos
with the
humanos, que es todo
warranty
lo
of
que
human
engloba el
rights,
acceso a la información y lo que
which
se
also
pretende
includes
con
access to
hacer un
information
acceso a la información en nuestros países. También
in
aprovecho
all
nada
our
más para
countries.
agradecer
I also want
nuevamente
to
el
take this time
comercial para el equipo de trabajo de jurisprudencia de la
to
OEA
thank you for the
que
commercial
hemos
or
hecho
the
varios
ad
informes
you did
que valdría la
for
pena
our
destacar
work
y que
group,
están disponibles
and all our
en la
reports
web
are
de la
available
red. Muchas
on
gracias
the
nuevamente,
network's
Eduardo, por
website.
estas
Thank you, Eduardo,
valiosas
again for
aportaciones.
your
Y con ello
valuable
cedo ahora
contribution.
el uso de la
Now I give the
voz
floor
a Sheila
to
Castillo de
Sheila Castillo
Arias,
de
la
Arias,
exdirectora general de la Autoridad
General Director
Nacional
of
de
the National Authority
Transparencia
of
y
Transparency and
Acceso
Access
a
to
la
Information of
Información de
Panama,
Panamá, quien además aprovecho la ocasión para
who
felicitar por el
I want to
nuevo cargo
congratulate
al que
for
está
her new
ostentando en este
appointment.
momento, a quien además acompaña Juan
And
Pablo Rodríguez
she's
Chavarría,
accompanied by Juan
director de
Pablo
Acceso
Rodríguez
a la
Chavarria, Director
Información
of Access to
de la misma
Information of
institución.
this
Nuevamente
same
les agradezco a
institution.
ambos su
Thank you
participación y
again for
les
your
cedo el uso del
participation.
uso
You
de la
have the
voz.
floor.
Buenos días a todos.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Efectivamente, agradezco la invitación
Thank you for the
y comparto
invitation.
con ustedes
And let me
que
share with
apenas
you
tengo
that
un mes de ser
I have
autoridad,
been
así que
appointed
para
as
mí ha sido de
this
mucha
authority
información
charge
lo
for a
que
month.
hasta este
So
momento he escuchado y le he pedido a mi director
I have asked
alguna
my
información que será
director
de gran ayuda
to
para
provide
la
information that
institución
will be
y para mi gestión. En esta
of great
importante
use
fecha
for
en la que
my
celebramos el Día
information. Today we are commemorating International Day of the Universal Access to Information. I appreciate the invitation by the INAI of Mexico to participate in this dialogue on the importance of these human rights and the challenges we are facing in this region for their inclusion in public policy. In the age of technology and instant communication, public policy should be thought and designed to leverage all the technology available as a tool to coadjuvate in transparency and access to information, to warranty that all citizens can access immediately and recurrently the information, public and human information from public servers. According to accessibility rules, original native languages, and other benefits. From our office in Panama, we want to reassure you of our commitment to protect this human right, which is the right to know. Inclusive knowledge can allow us to advance in the right direction from each of our organizations as warrantor brothers of this right of access to information and as plenary members of the Transparency Network. Thank you again, everyone, for the opportunity. I am sure that all the information shared will be very valuable for everyone. Today, I have Juan Pablo, Director of Access to Information of the National Authority of Transparency and Access to Information. I am now going to share my screen with you. Just 1 minute. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay, if we cannot share our screen, we can just maybe present. We can see your screen now. You can see it? Okay, great. Great. Can you see it now? Yes, we can see it, but we can see the notes you have added. How can we hide that? There we go. Okay, can you see it correctly now? No. On the lower part of your screen, you should be able to see an icon. Can you see it now? I'm sorry. Please bear with us. Do not worry. These things happen. Do not worry. Well, let me take this time to tell you, for everyone following us on YouTube, if you want to share a remark or a question, you can do so right now, or you can also send your comments and questions to our email, internacional@inai.org.mx. And let me also remind you that this transmission is being shared on INAI's YouTube channel if you want to watch it there. Okay, well, it seems we have technical issues with our presentation, but let me continue. For us, well, we have included some examples that we consider successes in our policy for access to information in our country. And I want to start with these two examples. The first, we currently have what we know in Panama as the Manual for Functions for Access to Information, which is a public policy for the resolution for the ATAI 005 of 2023 resolution implementing the use of the manual of procedures and guidelines for all public institutions of our Republic of Panama. In Panama, each public entity is forced to appoint an official accountable for implementing the transparency law, Law C of 2022, and to attend any request for access to information and post mandatory information. This manual establishes the procedures, times, and responsibilities to guarantee that information is provided in a timely manner and according to law, and also establishes the best practices to help public officials in their institutions and also officials to manage their administrative units. This structure has strengthened the culture of transparency in institutions, ensuring accountability and people trained in each organization. And we also have what we have as a platform known as monitoring of transparency that was implemented through the ATAI resolution of 2022. This authority made this resource of mandatory compliance to streamline the processing of monitoring of transparency in Panama, which was done manually until 2017, allowing citizens to access information from all state institutions in just one place, in an organized manner and in open formats. This monitoring platform is a digital tool that allows direct access and real-time access to public information. Any citizen can review budgets, hirings, tenders, and projects of public interest. This platform empowers the citizenry to exercise a social audit that is more active and promote accountability from institutions. The success of this platform is due to its simplicity, accessibility, and constant update, which allows citizens to audit publicly any information in an organized manner based on our learned lessons. The procedures and guidelines manual for access to information has allowed us to understand that we need training, which is essential. It's an important lesson. It's important to have a transparency law. That is essential. But transparency does not occur on its own. It depends on trained individuals that can ensure that access to information is guaranteed. And this manual allows understanding their responsibilities in the access to information, responsibility and commitment. Appoint a person responsible in each institution has promoted accountability, but it's important for officials to assume their commitment and provide their knowledge. This also requires a simplification of processes. The manual has established that when we establish standards and clear standards, we can optimize response times and we can reduce bureaucratic overhead or red tape. Technology can also facilitate, but does not replace citizen participation. This is a clear learning. Technology on its own, it's not enough. It is important to educate citizens on how to use these tools and promote a culture of transparency. Although the platform has democratized access to information, it is essential to accompany it with citizen training programs or citizen education programs for them to know how to use these tools effectively. Transparency must be active, allowing information available without formal requests reduces significantly red tape and response time. Integration with other platforms. We have learned that the transparency platform must be integrated with other public data systems to provide more complete and efficient information. That is all our presentation, and thank you again, everyone. I'm very glad to share this space with people as knowledgeable in this topic. Thank you very much, Ms. Castillo. On behalf of the whole RTA, we welcome you. And you have always been a friend and a partner with great participation. And we know this effort will continue. Thank you again, everyone. Also, thank you, Juan Pablo Rodríguez Chavarria. I would now like to tell you that the platforms and the manuals mentioned could be maybe shared to the executive secretariat so we can disseminate it throughout the memberships of the network. And we can learn from them as a good practice, and we can include them in our website. Also, I want to mention that it was very important what you mentioned about educating citizens to promote the way to access these tools for information. Thank you again. And due to time constraints, and thank you for staying on this call, I would like to ask you, if you have questions or comments, please share them through our email, international@inai.org.mx. And yes, we are a bit behind time, but I would like to conclude the session, but not before expressing on behalf of our president, our chair, Adriana Alcalá, and commissioners of the plenary, and every assistant, I want to appreciate all your participation, all reflections, all your contributions, and all your thoughts shared throughout this day have enriched us greatly on the dialogue on access to information. And of course, we have learned how we can include this in public policy. These spaces would not have the same impact if we had not the interest and commitment from each and every one of you through their presence, through your contribution, which strengthen the collective work of the whole network. Thank you again for being part of this effort, and receive our warm greetings. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening. Thank you, everyone. Greetings from Mexico. Oh, and just thank you, everyone. I have
Thank you. Good
followed
night.
all panel interventions. Everything has been interesting, and it's great to have this opportunity to greet you, all members of the RTA, everyone who has provided letters of support. It is very important to know that we are not alone in this effort, that we are part of a network with common objectives as brotherly countries. I want to reiterate our appreciation. This was an important day that we had to celebrate, and that is why INAI headed this event with 3 different panels from 3 different networks. And it is great that we can close with the Latin American network with the valuable contributions of our panelists. So again, thank you very much. We are also nearing our RTA gathering in this second semester of the year. And I'm sure our agenda will be very valuable, and it will consist of all the contributions of the different countries that are part of the Directive Council. Also, Chairman Alcalá is near here, is also in the call, also sends his greeting. So again, everyone that was here in this call from different platforms, thank you again. Have a great day, afternoon, or evening. See you soon. Thank you.
Gracias. Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches.
Hasta luego, hasta luego. Buenas tardes. Hasta luego.